Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Entela Jane. I'm the coordinator of Global Education Professional Programs and a faculty member in the School of Math and Science. On behalf of Global Education Advisory Board and the Subcommittee of Professional Programs, I welcome you all to the virtual 2022 Global Education Symposium. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few items with you. This is a virtual event. I would ask all participants to please make sure to mute yourself. You will get the opportunity to ask questions to our guest speakers, and it will be a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of each speech. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat box, and the moderator will read your question. The pandemic has taken lives and disrupted livelihoods in every corner of the globe. The pandemic has already changed our world decisively and forced upon the world a painful transformation. It has changed everything, the way we work, the extent to which we travel, and the manner in which we communicate, teach, and learn. COVID-19 has changed everything, but not our desire to be successful and strive. I would like to close my opening remarks with a quote from Vivian Green. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, but it's about learning how to dance in the rain. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. And now I have the privilege to welcome one of the members of the Subcommittee of Professional Program, Professor Damon Chromatis, for a very interesting welcoming message to all of you. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Entela. Thank you all for being here today. I have the privilege of introducing a short video that we have put together as the subcommittee, where we are sharing our thoughts on the pandemic using two words each, one positive, one negative, to sum up the last 2 years. I'm going to put the link to this video in the chat in case there's any kind of lag or anything like that. So that you can watch it in your spare time. Without further ado, yes.
Fake news. Facts, and then of course science.
No driving. Unemployment.
My good word for the pandemic is creativity. Not so good word, losses.
Zoom. Uncertainty. Nesiguranza.
Walking. Food.
Less and more.
Exhausted. Thankful.
Isolation. That gave way to connection.
Division, تفرقه, division. Hope, امید, espoir.
So that's our little video summing up the pandemic for all of us. It is my pleasure to pass things off to Dr. Azar Etasamirpour King, who will be introducing our first speaker.
Azar, you muted.
I'm sorry, yeah, sorry. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing well, and welcome to our annual symposium. So I have the pleasure to introduce you to our first guest speaker, Dr. Bien. She is currently working at Polytechnic University of the Philippines as the director of the Office of International Affairs and concurrently a faculty member of the PUP Graduate School and College of Social Sciences and Development, the Department of Psychology. She completed the degree of Doctorate of Philosophy, major in Educational Psychology. She has earned Master in Psychology, major in Clinical Psychology, and completed Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She has participated in seminars, webinars as resource speaker and research presenter in both national and international events. So we have a pleasure to have her here with us. So welcome, Dr. Bien, and you can go ahead. So if you have any question, please, you can write it in chat, and we would, by the end, we have 15 minutes to ask her the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azar. First of all, good morning to everyone. Good evening from here in the Philippines. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity of letting me share my thoughts on the topic that we have. Let me share my presentation on the equity in education during a pandemic, a step back or a step forward. Truly, what you have mentioned a while ago, that the pandemic has caused a drastic change to the lives of the people all over the world. And we could really notice that it's not only the health sector which had been affected by a lot of things. It has really caused a lot of changes also for the education system, not only in one country, but all over the world. And as you could see, the adjustments which had taken place were experienced not only by the students, but also by the educators all over the world. Well, in fact, we were used to a traditional setup wherein we talk face-to-face, we deal with our students, we meet them every day, and then later on, this has to be done virtually. And good thing that through technology, we are able to still continue on delivering the lessons, giving the topics to our students, giving activities. But whether we admit it or not, we could really see the difference of doing things virtually and face-to-face. It's a good thing that for other countries, they have already returned to a normal setup wherein the students could now be going to the school and attending their classes face-to-face with their professors, but it doesn't happen yet in the whole world. So let's have these topics for the discussion: equity and equality, educational equity, the principles of equity in education, a walkthrough of the education in the Philippines during the pandemic so that I could share what we have experienced here, particularly during the onset of the pandemic, the implications, and then bridging the gap. So as we all know, equity is the quality of being fair and reasonable in a way that gives equal treatment to everyone. And when it comes to education, every student receives the resources needed to acquire the basic work skills of learning, particularly through reading, writing, and simple arithmetic, as well as it measures success in society by its outcome, not the resources poured onto it. And at the same time, it means offering individualized support to students that addresses the barriers like poverty or limited transportation. As we compare equity and equality, equity would recognize that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. While equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources and opportunities. As we take a look at this, what would be the difference when we speak of this in education? Equity is achieved when all the students receive the resources they need so they graduate prepared for the success after school. On the other hand, equality in education is achieved when the students are all treated the same and have access to similar resources. Equity becomes more challenging when schools have closed their doors and the teachers, the educators, try to serve the students online or by telephone calls or other packages like sending modules to students, having books and any other learning materials or instructional materials, particularly to some students who are in the far-flung areas wherein they have limited internet accesses. But you could notice here that sometimes, or most of the times, particularly in other places, this is not really that possible. So, educational equity means the educational system gives each student what he or she needs to perform at an acceptable level. And according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, equity in education has two dimensions that are closely intertwined. First would be the fairness. It means making sure that the personal and social circumstances are not obstacles to achieving educational potential. Would this be including discrimination, prohibits discrimination based on the gender, ethnic origin, or the socioeconomic status? And the other one would be inclusion, which ensures a basic minimum standard of education for all. Like, for example, everyone should be able to read and write, do simple arithmetic, and if some students need more to get there, then they should be receiving it. Now, we could see here that each of the students, especially students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, English learners, students with disabilities, or the PWDs, and students experiencing homelessness, has access to strong education, which includes having skilled, well-supported teachers who reflect students' racial and linguistic diversity, are able to meet their students' distinct needs and provide engaging, culturally responsive, and standards-aligned instruction. Taking a look at these principles would be very ideal. But the question is, does this happen normally in the society? Here, some of the principles which could guide us as educators. Equity as equal preparation for life, equity as equal concern for all of a teacher's own students, and equity as fair incentives and rewards. So, one by one, we'll be having it here. For the first, equity as equal preparation for life, you could see here that as we refer this to education, it would mean every child would be having the same level of preparation by the time they become adults. They would further fall without support, the more support they should get from the schools. And at the same time, during the pandemic, this principle would mean directing as much attention as possible to the students who are likely to be worst affected by the disease, disrupted by the schooling, and by the economic hardship. And one reason for this equity is in our society, which is having a high demand for competitiveness. The other one equals concern for all of a teacher's own students. This would require concern for the actual individuals and the places that we know. And children, as we all know, aren't just educated by money being spent on them. They learn from adults and peers who care about them as human beings and who know their names and their needs. That's why it is very essential that as we go along, we meet our students, rapport as well as harmonious relationship inside the classroom is very essential. We do not just go straight ahead and delivering our lectures, although that is very important, but we have to get that connection with the students by showing that we also have concern as to what are they encountering. And the principle of equal care for all your students implies that you must help everyone, including those who are already advantaged, whereas the principle of preparing every child to compete on an equal footing directs you to favor the most vulnerable. Next, equity as an incentive and rewards. We could see here that our society makes very heavy use of incentives to motivate learning and work. So in schools, students do homework because it's graded. So what kind of motivation is that? Normally, the students should be doing tasks, not because they think about the grades. A while ago, I was hearing about the conversations, and one of the professors I have heard a while ago, he mentioned that the student is highly anxious about knowing the grades, having or being passed, obtaining a passed mark. We could really see here that the students should have this innate characteristic of being motivated on what they are doing. whether we admit it or not, there are a lot of students who gained high level of anxiety, not only because of the things they have to perform academically, but since they stayed at home, more or less, if ever they will be staying with their families, it could add up to the tension and the stresses that they could encounter as they see things happening all over the place, as they see things happening all over the families. We could top it up with some financial issues and matters that they are struggling every day. So here, we could see that with regards to the equity and the equality, one thing that really burst into, particularly during this time of pandemic, is the digital divide. So in the education sector, the digital divide would present the following: the inequalities in physical access to technology. As we all know, not all of the students are having this equipment, gadget, which has the same specifications or which are high performing, or others don't even have these things. It also includes imbalances in resources and skills needed to effectively participate as digital citizens. As you could notice here, particularly for the young ones, you would notice that there is a great role for the parents to assist their young kids in attending the virtual classes. The question now is, what if these parents are not very much knowledgeable with the use of these gadgets? Then we could really see that, whether we admit it or not, there are some people who are not well versed in using these things. And that could add on to the burden on having a limit to the resources and the access for the students to be able to browse things clearly and to understand lessons well as they go along with the semester. And at the same time, you could clearly see here that in the digital divide, there are different levels that comes with it. The first level, which would include the school infrastructure, the hardware, the software, the internet access support for technology. The second level, pertaining to the classroom, the use of technology by the teachers and the students. And the third level, wherein this is pertaining to the individual student, wherein it pertains to empowerment of the students. In the first level, we were mentioning a while ago about the physical things, the gadget that they use, the technology that they use, their access to internet. In some cases, some students could be having good internet connectivity, while for others, they have to top up their devices in order to get a connection, or at the same time, they have a limited access to this, or financially, it could not be provided by the university or the school where they are in, and that could be another issue. Okay, or in case they have gadget, we could not assure that all of them would be having the same functionality of these gadgets at the same time, unless it is being provided by the institution where they are connected. And then here, the second level, as we all know, it's not only the students who have to make adjustments with regards to learning from a virtual classroom. It could see, or we could also see, a burden for the teachers, because we know that not everyone, especially before the pandemic, since we are very much comfortable in going to the schools, in presenting ourselves physically to our students, so everything would be easy. But what about the use of this application? In the video which was presented a while ago, Zoom was very rampant, and other platforms like Google Meet and many others, Discord, right? What if the teacher wasn't well prepared for that? Well, we could say it's just easy, you just click, you just explore, you just try. But some of the educators before also experienced a level of anxiety in the first time they tried doing that. Oh, should I be muting my microphone? Should I be placing this video on? Should I be sitting somewhere else? And you could see noise coming from all over their houses, people knocking, dogs barking, vehicles passing by, right? We tend to get disrupted at the same time. And not everybody had this easy access to this kind of technology. Wherein even other professors would say that I would like to stop, I would like to resign, or I would like to retire earlier because I do not want to study on using this technology. We have to know that we have different mindsets on this. We are very lucky and we are very fortunate that we are well versed in the use of this and we want to keep on learning with these things. Okay. And then empowerment of the students. How can somebody be empowered if the first of the two levels are having some issues? So we can take a look at that at the same time. Of course, when you are empowered, it means you are well equipped with the resources that you need. And at the same time, the knowledge that you have to know and the things that you have to learn at the same time. So here, examples of the digital divide as mentioned here, infrastructure. You could see that this refers to the basic physical and organizational structures and facilities needed for the operation of a society or enterprise. As you could see here, the colors would really show us the difference. Here, there's a good connection. There are colorful lines, colorful icons and pictures that would depict a good connectivity. On the other hand, take a look at this color. Okay, the gray ones having lesser lines, lesser connections, and take a look at the appearance of the girl in the image. Take a look at that. Then another one, here are some of the news that had existed here in the Philippines, particularly during the time of the pandemic and during the quarantine. Okay, problems with the internet connection. This has happened particularly as the bulk of the classes had turned online. And at the same time, the low speed of the internet, it is also another challenge. As you could see here, the slow internet is a challenge to teachers and the students as the classes starts. Then we talk about the hardware, which is referring to the devices accessing or the access to computing devices such as computers, networking gears, and mobile phones. And then particularly with regards to education, access to computers in school and at home, the effective use of technology and teaching of the basic technology skills for the students. And then here, the slow internet, which is a challenge for the students, and defensive computing, the knowledge of safe computer practices and information security at the same time. Okay. Then we have here online learning. A student participates in an online learning class. As you could see here, there are a set of guidelines which is connected to how to implement the online learning with respect to the data privacy rights of the students and the teachers alike. And take a look at this, the cost. How much would a highly functional laptop would cost? And who can afford such things? We compare it with the other image. Take a look at this. Although there could be institutions which donate and provides this gadget for the students, but let's try to consider if this will be shared by some of the students and you are not exclusively using it, then there could still be limitations on how you're going to acquire the knowledge that you would be needing here. Unlike for those who are well off, they could buy and change their gadgets. They could even have a lot of gadget use at the same time. So we could really see the division with regards to this. Another is blocking. There are some areas where internet services are blocked by telecom companies or government censors. And if it's blocked, definitely the access could not be granted. And what if the students should be using that, which could really help them with regards to the knowledge that they would be having as they go along with their journey for the virtual learning? Then it gives another limitation. So this could be the possible effects of the technology in education. Transformation because of new things through technological breakthroughs. Whether we admit it or not, Most of our students are far better than us. They know a lot of application. They are well versed with different software. They know a lot of things which could be utilized as they go on with their studies. We just have to remind them that they have to be careful on what they are going to access and make sure that as they access these sites, they could be learning a lot and they could be extracting things that would add on to the knowledge to help them be empowered and achieve the success that they would like to have. And another affected the way things are presented and taught to the students. So today, it has been become a vital ingredient to learning at all education levels. So take a look. Whether you go from place to place, people would be asking, what's the Wi-Fi? What's the passcode? It's like it becomes one of our necessities. Well, if you have seen some memes or posts before in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in the basic needs, they have included the Wi-Fi. Take a look. Wherever we are, we tend to make use of our phones, not only for calls and texts, but we make use of it for our jobs. Remember, we give instructions to our students through the use of our mobile phones. We send emails, we exchange information to people all over the world by the use of this. And it has really paved the way on opening things that could be new to other places. And so it could be a good point in learning a lot of things, not only from our place, but all over the world. And mobility has become very active virtually. Before, you have to go from place to place and talk to people, have discussions, and later check on if that would be compatible for both of you to work on with that. And later you will agree before continuing, which could have greater cost. But right now, you set a Zoom link, you meet at the same time, you discuss these things, and it would be easier to conduct it, whether you are in your place and that person is in another country, and even you have different time zones. That's easier right now. Next is that the implications of the digital divide hindrance to the development of the underdeveloped areas. Well, particularly if you do not have this access, you will be late in knowing what are the current trends, right? It reduces the chance of having a greater career. What if you're very innocent that this thing exists? Like what we have mentioned, the world today is becoming more competitive and competitive. And you wouldn't survive without having a knowledge of the technology that arises because it becomes more advanced and advanced as day passes by. Okay, we are not just with the use of the Zoom applications because it could account for more than interactive platform that are being utilized in institutions. And what if you haven't experienced such? For other people, they haven't even seen computers, they haven't even seen laptops. They are very much new with seeing mobile phones and they find it amazing whenever it sounds. So take a look at that. And as a result, a student from different backgrounds, geographies, communities may lose their chance to develop innovative solutions. We should not miss the chance that every minds of our students, including us and the educators, have a lot of brilliant things in our minds. And we never stop learning as we explore the use of these things and the opportunity to be exposed with this kind of improving and developing technology. So here in a scenario, there had been a place here in the Philippines wherein the teachers, as part of delivering the modules for the students, would really have to literally cross a body of water to deliver these modules to students in far-flung areas. Take a look at the sacrifices of the people. The efforts are really counting a lot. However, we could say that it's not enough, right? These papers would not contain everything that the students need to acquire and to experience. There is far more for them to explore. But what if this is the tendency? What if the place, which is far-flung, could not really have an access to connectivity? And so the limit sets in once again. So take a look at this, because the students could not get a good internet connectivities, particularly to areas which are not highly developed. Take a look at this child. The child tries to stay on top so that he could get a signal for the connection, just to get a good internet connection to attend on the virtual classes. Imagine during recitations when the student is called and then he or she suddenly has been disconnected. Take a look at how anxious a student could feel. Even for us educators, I myself, I experienced that. I get kicked out of my meeting room because my internet connection are facing some difficulties or issues. So take a look at this. For others, it would just be simply getting up in their beds, having their study tables beside their beds, logging in with their computers. But what about these people? What about for those who are not gifted with such kind of life? Take a look at the efforts and the struggles that they have to face. Next, so here, teachers, parents brace for double workload and unfamiliar tools, and to secure an internet connection on the first day of school. In the year 2020 and 2021, here in the Philippines, particularly in the city of Batangas, the teachers had to climb onto the roof of their school as the country transitions to a blended learning amid COVID-19 pandemic. So take a look at the scenario. Now, in bridging the gap, there will be a positive impact on countries and the people as we try to connect the things that would allow the educators as well as the learners to more or less grasp the knowledge that they need and the resources that they have to acquire for the things which are essential for education. The students will be able to create a significant difference in the community by learning new ways to tackle the issues. Well, it's not only about education which is being developed here. Holistically, we consider the development of our students as we train them, not just to be resilient, not just to be resourceful, but we holistically would like them to develop themselves into useful citizens in whatever endeavors they would choose in the future. You could see here now that in the case wherein you are having a lot of struggles and you are having a lot of issues, it's really tempting just to stop on with your studies. If you will be facing the same issues every day and every day, add on to the requirements that you have to submit in the class, add on to the things that you are experiencing with your family members or any other issues on top of the struggles that you are encountering. And working together to achieve a common goal and thinking creatively to develop solutions to problems. So people empowerment, we have here the improvement of the digital capacities all over the world. And we could really say that there are many generous individuals, actions of the government, the movement of the local governments at the same time in order to bridge the digital divide globally. Discover ways to expand information infrastructure, reduce the cost of service for internet access, provide cost-effective and affordable solutions, promote digital literacy via campaigns or incentives, collaborate with successful entities and robust networking, and offer wireless access in the study of polls and library for the entire day. So as a remedy for that, here are some of the mechanisms which are being done. So the deployment of broadband capacity across the nation, especially in the remote areas, inaccessible and considered unprofitable by the private sector. And with this, the government will have access to cheaper and more reliable internet services that will reduce government spending on internet consumption. Next is that for some private entities, like for example, McDonald's, they converted party rooms as Mac classrooms for teachers, wherein it provided Wi-Fi, and then the teachers could sit in with the spaces wherein they could be delivering their lessons in a more conducive environment. So this has been useful at the same time. And another thing, Globe Telecom secures over 700 permits to build cell sites. Globe is one of the telecommunication companies here in the Philippines. And then one of the provinces in Binyan, Laguna launches free Wi-Fi hotspots for public school students so they could have connectivity. And then a backup postpaid internet plan in the Philippines. And then a partnership here for a Globe Telecom so that they could be providing efficient delivery of its blended learning platform. Local government units give out tablets to grade 1 students and 1,500 laptops to teachers so that they could be using it. You could see donations of computers, the actions of the local government at the same time so that they could send self-learning modules and bags to students, tablets, and any other gadget that could be helpful for them in order to carry out the learning that they have to conduct within each sessions. And of course, the flexible e-learning buses, which was launched. These mobile buses are traveling from place to place and are equipped with computers and internet connections and are rotated in the municipalities where there are the students without gadgets and internet connection due to financial limitations, and also the launching of the Department of Education TV channels, wherein they aired the recorded lessons of the teachers within the television so that the students could watch it. And the motorbike with sidecar, which carries TV and other learning materials for indigenous groups in the far-flung area of Pampanga. It's a province here in the Philippines. So here you could see grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and other learning resources that could be accessed by the students. So to wrap up with that, we could really see that ideally equity and equality would be a good thing for us to push through with the enhancement of the delivery of the education so that the students could possibly learn and achieve what they want to fulfill in the next years of their lives. And let me sum this up by this. We must also promote global access to the internet. We need to bridge the digital divide, not just within our country, but among countries. And only by giving people around the world access to this technology can they tap in the potential of the information age. So with that, thank you very much for listening. I hope I was able to share some information that could have been useful to everybody. Thank you very much once again, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bien, for your interesting presentation. So we have a little bit time, maybe a few minutes to ask questions. But so anyone who has questions, you can type it into the chat. But before anyone asks questions, so I was wondering, what kind of what was the hardest for you to adjust once the pandemic hit as an educator, and how you deal with it? So, or are you you got used to it? How do you do it, or how did you do it?
Thank you for that very interesting question. So one of the greatest challenge that I have encountered is that the psychological well-being of the students is greatly much affected during this time, particularly here in the Philippines, considering that it's not a very well-off country. I have shown the scenario a while ago. So I have encountered a lot of students who were living far-flung here in the Philippines, and they are joining my classes and they are having issues with connectivity. Now, another thing is that I have mentioned about the psychological well-being. Considering the higher cases of COVID here in the Philippines, particularly on the first time that we encountered these lockdowns, a lot of students would be messaging you in any time of the day, airing their concerns, considering that I'm one in the field of the psychology. So the students would be really asking, they would be opening up that, ma'am, my relative died some of my friends are having positive result of the test, and I was one of the great contact that they have. So issues like that could really press upon the burdens that the students are facing. And others would be saying, I would not be able to attend the class, although I want to attend the class because I have to undergo a quarantine. I have to be in the facility and I would not be having an internet access to that. So that's one of the challenging thing, because in the face-to-face, I could really say that I'm a bit strict when it comes to attendance, when it comes to workloads, when it comes to assigning tasks. So I have to be a little flexible and consider what the students are going through. And apart from that, me personally have experienced a health anxiety. I have to consult a psychologist online because I have to keep myself in balance for the issues I am facing. And the thing is that physically, because you keep on sitting and sitting for long hours of time, I had problem with my back. So I had to undergo a therapy on top of it. And that also add on to the challenges that I have experienced. Plus, the fear of contacting or having a disease or spreading it to the family members whom I am with contact with. And so that's one of the most challenging thing that I have encountered, particularly being more empathetic on how the students would feel given in that position if you will be facing that issue. So what could be the possible things or what I have done in order to overcome it? First, the mindset of things will pass, and take a look at the brighter side of the things. I have to keep in mind that as an educator, I have to be a role model for my students. If I feel that I am falling down, they might be demotivated if I show no enthusiasm as I enter our virtual classroom. And at the same time, we could really see that with regards to things, it's a time for us to explore more on ourselves, our capacities, our struggles, our challenges, and it is also a way of improving our mental health and our physical health. That's one thing I have learned, the importance of exercising, the importance of meditation, the importance of having a good diet and balancing your time as well, classes, office, discussions, meetings, and any other things on top of it, organizing events. So that's the thing that I had to juggle and that I had to strive of in trying to balance things so I could still look my best when I face the students. And more or less, even though I'm passing through some things, everybody does, still we could motivate these people for continuing on with their lives. And it will just pass, it will also end, and we could also adapt. And slowly, as time passes by, I could say that it improved and the students' condition are also improving nowadays. Especially right now, we are allowed to report in the office every day. We are only waiting for the announcement of having a limited face-to-face, but we are trying to start off with the courses that include laboratory classes so the students could have a personal experience of the things that they are encountering.
So you are still fully online, am I right?
Yes, yes. At
Okay.
this time, the classes are still delivered online.
Okay, thank you. So we have like few more minutes because our next speaker is there. So I had few questions, but one of them is just, what's the average age of your students? Did you have older students who had trouble adjusting to technology? So what did you do to address these issues? So that's just very
Yes.
quickly. So sorry, I'm putting you in that position.
It's fine. Thank you so much. Average age of the students, I have college students, the university students, like for example, 16 to 20. But those who are older than me are in the graduate school. I could really say that they are having issues with regards to getting into meeting rooms, logging into the Zoom links, and at the same time sharing screen. So what do we do there? Of course, slowly we have to teach them. Click this button. Do you see this? Of course, you're just like doing manual demonstration, and there is an instance that I had shared the whole screen so that the student could see which icon I was clicking on, and somehow it helped.
Oh, thank you. So thank you very much for your interesting presentation. It was our pleasure to have you. Hopefully we can have you more on. Have a wonderful evening. I know you have 12 hours difference, so you took your time, your personal time to present for us. So have a great evening and talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank
you so much,
next-
Dr. Bien. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing all this information. And then I think everyone in the meeting was very delighted to have you present. And we're looking forward to seeing you in the future and more collaboration with your university as well. Thank you for being with us on this call.
Thank you very much.
So moving on, everyone. It's been an exciting evening, day and evening in Philippines for everyone. I would like to personally, on behalf of Global Education Advisory Board, thank you, Dr. Bien, for being with us today, sharing her thoughts and experience during pandemic at the University of Philippines. But it's time to move on. So we have our next guest speaker. I have the pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Andrea Gwendelman. She's a writer, speaker, entrepreneur who specializes in expansive leadership, helping individuals and organizations unlock potential through openness. Through her deep and varied background, from practicing law to tech startup, diversity initiatives to energy work, Andrea has come to embody an inspiring and unique kind of alchemy, fluidly transitioning between the worlds of business and spiritual growth. Her strength derives from the intersection of these forces and allows her to bring unique energy and mindfulness forged with a keen business acumen to the work and to those around her. Andrea has curated major conferences and festivals on social entrepreneurship, technology, and diversity, drawing hundreds or thousands of individuals and speakers and performers, ranging from Al Gore to Devendra Banhart. Earlier in her career, Andrea worked as a finance lawyer in the international law firm or Dubois and Plimpton, and the Export-Import Bank of the United States. Andrea earned law degrees from Harvard Law School and the University of Chile. She's an executive MBA program at MIT's Sloan School of Management. She's a leading force in creating platforms for minority professionals in the tech industry. Through her own experience as a Harvard-trained corporate lawyer and an entrepreneur, she co-created Wall Breakers, a solution to connect talented computer science majors from universities across the country with companies hungry for talent and looking to build inclusive teams. And without any further ado, I'm honored to invite our next speaker, Ms. Andrea Gwendelman.
Thank you. That was a long introduction. For the next time, I'm going to shorten it. I apologize to everyone. That was so long. Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to have you today.
So do you want to ask me, should I just talk or just?
Yes, we would like you to spend maybe like 15-20 minutes, deliver your speech, and then I will moderate questions from the audience.
Okay, so I think we are talking about what has been the impact of the pandemic in education, and that has been kind of the focus. And we let me tell you a little bit what we do at Speak. So we work with we work with candidates or students, and we call them candidates. Many of them are current students, just graduated from every university in the country, really literally every university in the country, and now in Canada and Mexico as well. What we do is that we kind of supplement what the universities are not providing sometimes, which is this very, very niche technical interview screening. which is kind of what you need to get the job in a technical field, especially in software engineering. So we provide that. It's kind of we call it a lab, but it's kind of a lab in where candidates can prepare with each other. So there's a lot of mock interviews, there's a lot of one-on-ones, there's a lot of interactions and community. Because what we've seen with the students is that most of the reasons they fail these technical interviews, particularly when they come from schools that are less connected to tech companies, is that they don't have the experience interviewing, nor are they taught that in school. Like the skill of interviewing and how you answer the STAR method questions, which is all about you telling your story, all that, right, is not taught in university. So we and companies don't teach you that either. So there was a void. And we kind of are considered like a non-for-profit but we are not, we're a company, but we're free to candidates because we wanted to attract diversity and inclusion. For us, being free to candidates was essential part of our business model. So long story short, how this pandemic has influenced this work, it has been very interesting, and I feel like it's going to be a new cycle again. So I want to watch out for that. What we saw in the pandemic was a huge, reaction from companies, hiring freezes, right? This affected entry-level candidates. So university students very much, right? There were no internships all of a sudden. There were not, entry-level jobs all of a sudden. There was death, and we still see the repercussions of that. So many of the 2020 grads were behind because they didn't get the job at the time. And, it's just really affects. So for me, the pandemic was very, very important because I saw a decrease, right, in people very talented getting these opportunities. There's a massive panic of companies and freezing jobs, and this affected them a lot. Now, what happened later was that there was a lot of demand for these candidates. So I think the market corrected, and the fury to get them, and if they were good, they got jobs. So that was great. I am seeing the same happening again with companies. What is happening now with the impending recession, companies are freaking out. They're seeing their Q2 results not great. If they're public companies, they have to take measures for the shareholders, unless they explain to the shareholders why maintaining hires or investing in the future is important. But if not, they're going to have to cut, right, again. So even though this is not directly related to a pandemic, it is an aftermath. So much money in the market now. There's recession, and this will affect entry-level people again. The first jobs that are cut are the internships, and that I'm worried about that. I'm a little bit worried about that. So that's in high level how I saw the pandemic affecting my work. It was fluctuating, and I think everything it corrects. Now, candidates or students talk. They talk, and they're in the job market and they talk, and they're gonna be talking to each other about who is a stable company, who is doing freezes, who is not doing freezes. So the brands of the company now are at stake. So I think as educators, it's very important we have this talent that is very much sought after, globally, especially in tech, right? I'm talking about tech because that's the world I live in. And I'm talking about software engineers, I'm talking about computer science majors, math majors, civil engineer majors, mechanical engineer, you name it, data scientists, cognitive, talking about those disciplines are extremely in high demand. Also UX designers and designers in general. And so in those professions, I think as an institution, as a universities, we need to remind the people that want to engage with us, be stable, offer opportunities, do not walk away now in moments what are you going to offer? If you're doing cuts, what are you going to offer? Then you're going to come back to us and we want you, but in the moments of distress, you didn't offer anything. So I think pushing companies on branding, on how they're going to exhibit the brand in front of our candidates is very important. Not that we can control that, but I think it's a moment of negotiation. They were begging for this talent, and now what are they going to do? So I think if we organize about it, that's important. The other thing I would say is that, I run what is called cohort-based courses. What I like, this is online education, right? But it is very, very live. So because there's a lot of pair programming, pair coding, pair exercises, people there's workshops, so this is online, there's a course component, but then you have this like sort of community interactions. Then we have also a Discord channel. We use Discord, which is like a social media app for gamers, but now it's kind of really used across the board for a community. So I think that is an interesting model for universities that have gone online, which is like mixing the online education with, of course, the cohorts. In a way you do that because you still have classes and you connect them. But I think this kind of connecting them on purpose, matching them to work together offline is super important, because at the end of the day, people crave these connections, they love the network, and they feel that they got a lot of value from these interactions. The other thing I would say, lastly, sorry, I don't want to take so much time, but basically the other thing that I want to stress out is that in this world and age where we prepare the students, they're brilliant, they're very well prepared. I mean, I see so many brilliant people. Then what happens is that they fall into a black box because of the prevalent use of artificial intelligence in our corporations and our systems. What we're seeing more and more is that connections and network and social capital is at an all-time high of need. Like, in other words, you would have thought that artificial intelligence was supposed to level the playing field, recognize who was good. It has done the absolute opposite. And what happens is that no one is no one. Everybody's no one. They're like, no one knows, and like no one knows anyone. They fall into a black box. People are overwhelmed. They don't have a capability to distinguish A from B. The AI is horrible, it's not good. The AI without people doesn't work. So it's more than ever necessary for academic institutions, I feel, to fill in that role of networking and helping with social capital and helping connect them to companies and to opportunities, because it's harder than ever to like surface and kind of rise beyond, that level. I also see other great trends. We work with one of our biggest customers is Amazon. You can say whatever you want about them. You might like it or not like them. They hire like crazy entry level, and now they're expanding to 2-year degrees. So computer science AA degrees, which is wonderful. They're doing a pilot with us on that. We're doing a pilot with San Antonio College. But basically that's a new experiment. Can we, can these AA degrees be as good or have like the necessary requirements to get a full-time job? So that's an interesting thing to look at and see what companies do with it. I also see another trend happening, which is the apprenticeships. Companies creating this kind of in-between model that is not it's full-time work, but with a little bit of a ramp up and a little bit of a lesser pay, but still very good, that leads you to a full-time job. So those are innovations I see great companies do. I see that universities need to help candidates more than ever in this recession coming again as a result of the pandemic, to really connect to opportunities, to connect to each other. So this online and hybrid and in-person, and I think the role of universities, which is what we replicate in our program. What we do is that we replicate that environment once they have graduated, to have this community to prepare. But since you have that opportunity to do it within more preparation programs for people getting prepared to get an interview, will be, I think, super interesting. Doing it online, part in person, hybrid, however you want to do it, I think is incredibly valuable. I don't know if I talk too much, but I just wanted to offer my perspective of what I'm seeing from where I sit, which is a direct connection to industry. The last thing I want to say is that I am not worried, even though people are worried. I really am not worried about diversity and kind of how all this pandemic, all these like new fears of recession will affect the entry-level community. I think companies are very focused on diversity. It's a top mandate from the board, as well as to conserve resources. So those are two mandates, right? Diversify your workforce, conserve resources if there's going to be. So those are two. So they're not they might be contradictory, but I think I am very confident that the diversity mandate is strong enough that will not go away in this recession.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Andrea. Then I'm going to open up to the questions. So if you have any questions for Andrea, feel free to post it in the chat box, and then I'll be able to read the question to her.
What is the average age of your students? Do you have older students? You have trouble?
We do have older students, and then we have, so the average age of our students changes. This is a 2-year institution, the Community College of Baltimore County. So we have a variety.
Yeah, this is a very good question, and we get this question. So what we attract a lot of candidates with, you know, either 2-year degrees or with degrees from another like major, like let's say, and then they go into like tech, or they switch careers, and they all want to find inspiration in other people that have switched careers or they have gone through this. It's very like, so there's moms, there's people that completely switch careers, and so I bet you have a lot of that as well. I think that they need inspiration. It's harder for them. It's really harder for them. Many companies we work with do not want people without X number of like this type of degree, this type of thing, right? They're like very picky. Others are less, but those are at the fewer companies. So for the that's what I'm saying. I'm super excited to see Amazon moving into trying this 2-year thing. It's like wonderful. I think that inspirational stories for them, because we've been asked a lot, hey, can you like show us people that have gone through these weird career trajectories and have succeeded? They ask us a lot for that, because it is hard, but if you can imagine yourself doing it, then you're gonna go for it. So I would say that yes, I think they need inspiration, they need examples, they need like assurance that it's possible, and everything's possible, and we know that everything is possible, right? I mean, if we decide that it's possible, but that psychology, I think, is part of our job, to make sure that they are trained psychologically to be like, to stay focused on that, because it's easy to give up as you don't get interviews, no one invites you to interviews. Very, very frustrating for people.
So one of the faculty member attending our symposium is asking, I would like to get Andrea's email information. She may be of help for me to get in touch with someone in Chile, since she is from that country.
Yes, and I'm going to Chile next week, so yes.
Then I have a question for you, Andrea. What are challenges, and what were challenges and benefits of pandemic for you? So during the past 2 years,
for me personally,
or for the company that you're leading. So what were some challenges that you faced during the pandemic, and what are some current challenges that you're still facing? Because of the pandemic is still going on, but because of...
I mean, the pandemic is going on. I really see the new challenge being the impending recession, but that's, how I see, but I think what I want to say is that challenges are always opportunities. They're always opportunities to revise what you're doing, to rethink, to like sort of be creative, because what happens is that people, when there's moments of challenge, people paralyze and they don't do anything. So if you can be the one that doesn't paralyze and like sort of becomes creative. So for us was a great moment I would say for us was a great moment to attract amazing talent, get them prepared. They were like preparing, but sometimes they took 2 or 3 times a course. There were no opportunities, like, there were no one's hiring, but they took and they prepared. When the opportunities open up, these people got hired like immediately. It was like incredible. They have put the work in between where there was like a slowdown, the people that did it, and they just, also there was a lot of good people, just very talented people, period, right? Like floating around without opportunities. So, and then for us was hard because we didn't have opportunities for a while. We had big contracts with companies that got canceled. We had a huge contract with Visa canceled, no entry level, nothing, they were not hiring. And for a while I did something else. I kind of started creating a tech product to like serve, I focused on other things. And I think for now, the challenges that I see, I think that a great opportunity came is that everything is remote now. So that I feel like the playing field a little bit like even, because like if you have to move to a high, like expensive city to work, like that's gonna really affect you as an entry-level candidate that comes from like maybe not a rich family, of course, and you don't have a lot of like money to rent an apartment. So this thing of being remote, and that the candidates are expecting these remote kind of opportunities, is a blessing. It's also difficult because then it's harder to create community, harder to meet people, but in terms of economic advantage and opportunities, it's really good, I think. And so going back to like in person might not be great for candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. Actually, maybe really bad. And please, the candidates from underrepresented backgrounds many times want to stay close to family. They have all these restrictions of the roles they play in their households. So it's not just pick up and move. As you say, they're older candidates, not just pick up and move. So those are, I think, great benefits of this pandemic in terms of like the change of how you work. And I think that that's not going away.
What are the ways we can support students to continue to build their skills in recession so they are ready when things improve? Those with more resources will naturally have more ability to go back to school when the economy is tightened.
That's a very good question. And I think like what at the end of the day companies look for, like they would pardon or they would forgive this I'm not degree or not degree here. I mean, they want, when they want the entry level, they want the 4-year degree because that's kind of a risk, like, okay, I'm risk-free that this person knows how. But if they don't have the 4-year degree, what they're gonna be looking for more and more is experience. So any opportunities to gain experience, doing jobs, doing works in their field, not experience working at McDonald's, that doesn't serve. Like if I see a resume with 8 years of experience working in a non-related field to you, doesn't help me to present to an employer. So it has to be in your field. So more opportunities to do projects related to your field. That's key. Employers really, really value that in a world that is moving away from degrees. So every time employers are going to be more and more open, and you'll see that. You see more and more openness to move away from degrees. It's not happening in one day, but it's happening. It's a trend and it's happening. But you need to supplement that with, okay, I have the skill. And how do I know I have the skill? I have done all these projects to gain that skill. I have all these projects. So project-based partnerships, key. I cannot emphasize that enough. So I feel like universities have a lot of work to do in terms of creating partnerships, where you can really create partnerships to give opportunities for people to hone in their skills.
What are the ways we can support students who are changing their career? So they had a career, they're coming back. In our institution, we have students that had a career and then all of a sudden they decided to change career and they come back to get educated, get a 2-year degree. And now once they finish, their goal is to find a new job and then build up a new career. So what can we do as an institution to support those students?
I think that you can, one of the things that you can help, and universities are bad at this in general, but why should we still be bad? I mean, universities should help. So the career, you have the career centers, but like sort of like not leaving all of it to the career centers. Having like basically everyone in the organization, any professor, any administrator, empowered with the job of connecting candidates to companies and opportunities, so that the job of connecting candidates to opportunities, the job of bringing opportunities to a university is not a job of career center, which normally they have the monopoly, they don't share opportunities with candidates. I worked at a university and I know very firsthand, because I was hired by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion of CU Boulder to bring more opportunities to students of color from the tech industry. Why? Not because the career center wasn't doing a good job, but they were like not focused on that. And they just had their, set of companies they work with. And there was a lot of resistance from career center to work with me and with us, with the office. They felt very threatened, right? Because we were bringing more opportunities. And I think that's a mindset that needs to change. I mean, it should be all about the students. All about the students. Why is it about the career center and the power that they have? Why is it about the power that this person has? In a moment of crisis, the directive should be from the high up to have everyone make it their job and be actually like given a bonus or given, you know, recognition based on how many opportunities they bring to the students. Do you get anyone hired? Do you get anyone introduced? That should be in your evaluation. That should be critical right now. Everybody is a part of that. Like, it's not, everybody should be recruiting for that, for those students. Everyone's job is to do that. I mean, I have goosebumps when I say that. I think that if people all thought like that, you'll get so many opportunities for students. Everybody has a connection. Everybody can contribute their network. Absolutely everybody. And that's what they most need. Again, social capital has become the most important skills and social capital. Degree less, and that puts you in a great position as a two-year institution. Because if degrees are not going to be considered the most important thing, and there's a movement against them, like, or not against them, but like to like consider them less, then skills-based social capital, and they go together, right?
How can we as an institution help older students? So students that their average age is somewhere between like 40s, 50s, they had a career before, but no education. They decided to come back to school. And then we have so many of them in the two-year institutions, and their goal is to get a better job. So what can the university do to
I think that one, okay, I have an idea that's a little bit crazy, but not crazy, who knows. But I think partnering with startups is a great idea, because startups need labor that has experience and don't have sometimes enough money to pay for very experienced people. I mean, I understand they don't have experience, but they're gonna be good workers. So I feel like partnering with like an internship program with startups of the area, like in Baltimore, for example. I know you have a lot of, you know, it's emerging companies and things like that. So partnering in that sense, offering, you know, for example, let me give you an example. We are partnering with an organization that trains people that are switching jobs to become recruiters. And I need, you know, we always are recruiting and need recruiters. And so I'm partnering with that organization for giving them internships and giving them experience. And I think many startups would benefit the same way that startups and I hire like very entry-level people, like through, you know, internships and things for, you know, because that's what we can afford. Non-for-profit startups, you know, those are a great way to entry. And again, it's all about social connections. So one connection leads you to another. What they need is to be connected to a new world and a new set of people, so that one can, that's the web. And I'm gonna be very honest, my whole career is about networking and about creating these connections. And so I am a strong believer in those. And I think they're like 99% of the reason why someone gets an opportunity. I mean, obviously they have to be nice and they have to do their job well and they have to be responsible, but that, you know, someone that goes back to school after having worked a lifetime, to me is a person that is of incredible character, resilience, willingness to, I mean, that shows so much about that person. I'm not worried about the soft skills they have, right? I'm just worried that they have the opportunity.
So 2 years into the pandemic, now we're not saying that the pandemic is over, but what is the ratio that you've seen in terms of hiring between the most recent graduate, younger ages, and people with some experience?
I mean, until very recent, I would say, and this changes super fast. I mean, obviously people with experience in their fields are in so much demand. They're also commanding, at least in tech, astronomical salaries that like companies are like, it's an inflation race that is like crazy. So I think there's a movement now again to go to entry level. I've seen more and more entry level openings and people and companies looking for entry level. So the pandemic at the beginning, we all needed like experienced people because, you know, we didn't hire for a very long time. Then you like open the gate, you needed very experienced people. And you couldn't hire, always the argument is like, no, we cannot hire entry level because we don't have enough experienced people to train them. But now they've gone there, the companies are full of experienced people. Now they're ready. It's true, it was a pipeline issue. And now they're ready for that. And that's, you know, that's how it works. I think that we're in a good position in terms of like the companies having the infrastructure to receive entry level.
You're originally from Chile. Have you done any work with any university in Chile? And have you done any work during pandemic? And then can you share that experience with us?
No, I haven't done work with the university. I mean, I have a lot of, but I am recruiting from Chile. I am recruiting engineers in Chile. I'm going to be launching a company in Chile. Not launching, opening an office, but like basically recruiting officially from Chile. I see more and more I hear companies recruiting in Mexico. Chile, they should know that Chile is the same way with the visa, very easy to get visa, like the visa in Mexico. So those are the reasons why now companies, that when they recruit in North America. So Mexico, Canada, they recruit in North America. So Chile will be, I think, the next, for us, kind of like the natural next step.
You did mention that you do most of the work with technology and the STEM field. Is it possible you can share your thoughts as far as what is currently the percent of the graduates in the STEM field in the United States, and does the pandemic had an impact in the STEM field overall, as far as students graduating in the STEM, as far as filling the jobs in the STEM field? And
I think the graduation, I don't have the percentages by, I mean, I have to look 1 second, but I focus on the students from underrepresented backgrounds, and at the level they're graduating, basically. So someone asked me very recently why, because we always say that, or the reason that we exist is that 89% of underrepresented talent, my company exists, 89% of underrepresented talent in tech is rejected at the top of the hiring funnel. Rejected at the top. What does it mean? They don't get either the opportunity to interview, they talk themselves out of the opportunity, because of imposter syndrome, whatever, they fall into a black box, or they don't pass the online assessment, which is the first kind of like screen, right? So, but many times they don't even receive an online assessment. We saw that a lot. So they ask us, well, why you get to that 89%? So CS grads of the total CS grads, and I'm gonna share this article with you guys because all the information is here. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but this is all here. Basically, 13% are Black and 18% are Latinos of all the CX grads in the United States. 13% are Black and 18% are Latinos. But technical workers at Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Twitter, according to a company's diversity reports, are on average 3% Hispanic, so 3% of the 18%, and 1% Black, 1% of the 13%. But that includes, so software engineers are even less. So Blacks, if 7.6 get higher, so 92% do not. Latinos, 16 get higher, 84% do not. And I'm talking about the big tech companies, right? So those are the things that we're seeing, that even though the graduation rates and that article I shared has all this information, has gone up and up, we still see that, sorry, I sent it to Guillermo, because I think he sent me a direct message. Let me put it in everyone. Sorry about that. This is the article I wanted to share. That has all the information about that. And then this article has the information about, it's a little bit old, but I don't think it has changed. Things have changed that much, unfortunately.
You're saying students from those minority groups, they do have the skills, they do have the degrees, but they have a very hard time to get hired in big tech companies.
Yes, very much. And so that's our role. That's what my company does. It helps them get hired in big tech companies that they aspire to, that they would never have access to.
But universities, what they need to do, because in addition to getting the students to go through their coursework and then complete the requirements to get the degree, is there anything else that you recommend to us that needs to be done to create that connection, that piece that it looks like it's missing?
yeah, I mean, partnering with organizations like mine, if you can. There's a lot of others ones that specialize in sales, then we do specialize in but look for the ones that don't charge, because the ones that charge, I understand their businesses. It's just that it's not for a student that is already going through like major changes hard, or do it yourself, like either partner, do it yourself, create more of these like mentoring, networking opportunities for students. That's what I did at the University of Colorado for 3 years. We just created a lot of the networking opportunities. Obviously, the pandemic affected that work because once everything shut down, but that was the first reaction of universities, and that's fine. I mean, that's normal. I don't think we need to ever react like that again. We know how to do things online. We have learned a lot, and so just if we cannot do it in person, we do it online, and it's even better. The whole world. I would like the college, the City College of like the University of Baltimore, your college. What I would do is that I would look at everyone prominent in the country that comes from Baltimore. Who is from Baltimore that is like successful in the world? It doesn't have to have gone through your college, but who is successful that wants to give back? You will be surprised how much people want to give back, want to help other people going through stuff. I mean, this whole thing of mentorship is like amazing. People love to talk to younger people, to their younger selves. So yeah, it's an effort though. You have to like really reach out. I mean, you guys are doing a great effort. Look, you put all this thing together, all this network. I mean, obviously you know how to network and tell us, so that's great.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Any other questions for Andrea? I don't see other questions.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing your thoughts with us and then being part of the Global Education Symposium. Azar, do you have anything?
I hope it was helpful.
Thank you. Azar, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to thank you for sharing your experiences. Hopefully we could maybe partner with your firm so that can help our students, especially the STEM students. But thank you for being here.
Andrea, I did not ask you, have you done any partnership with a two-year institution?
Yeah, we're doing one with as I said, with San Antonio College.
Okay.
To funnel the summer candidates to Amazon, to a pilot.
They do internship with Amazon or?
No, it's not an internship. It will be a full-time apprenticeship or job, depends.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. That's why I'm very interested in.
Very interesting, yeah.
If that works out well, doing more.
Yeah.
That will be very interesting.
Mine, and we would, I guess, be in contact. Not, I'm teaching,
yeah, no, absolutely, and I hopefully more companies do that, and maybe.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to help our students to be successful, not only in the school and then get the degree, and then whatever the scenarios are of changing their career, coming back to school after a number of years, or starting a brand new degree after majoring in something else or getting a certificate. But their ultimate goal is to find a better job and do a better living for themselves and their families. So
100%, 100%. And the possibilities of moving up when you get one of these jobs, incredible. Like we see some of our candidates coming from any state school, whatever, they get a job at Amazon, make at the end of the day $180,000. If you add, the options and the signing bonus and this, I'm like, oh my God, like, people can't believe it, and it's unbelievable, but it happens. Maybe in the right profession in this moment in time in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Azar, do we have our students on the call?
I see them. Did you see? I think I saw.
I have seen two of them.
So then we will have to.
Yeah, I had to apologize for one of our students due to some medical conditions. One of our students won't be able to be with us today. We wish him all the best, and then we'll continue with the other two students. I believe we have both of them on the call.
Yes, so it is my pleasure to introduce two students who will be sharing their perspective on what the pandemic has meant to them as students and this whole question of equity. First one to introduce is Berkant Kozgel. Berkant graduated from Akdeniz University in Turkey as an organic agricultural technician. And as part of the US Department of State sponsored CCI program, he is currently studying horticulture at CCBC. He will then pursue a career in agricultural technology and entomology. Welcome, Berkant. Also here today is Sara Alejandra Vargas Castaneda. Sara has a chemistry background in Colombia, where she completed a technician certificate in setting up laboratories and tests. And as part of the State Department sponsored CCI program, she is currently studying horticulture as well here at CCBC. So Berkant, Sara, thank you so much for being here. We have the next little while for you all to share your stories, and then we'll open it up for question and answer. Sara, Berkant, would one of you like to go first in sharing your perspective?
I can go first if you
Great,
like.
thank you, Sara. Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm from Colombia and I'm studying horticulture. Well, I have finished. I'm gonna share my perspective regarding both places, Colombia and here. In Colombia, when the COVID started, I think no one was ready, not even in other countries. So it was really hard to change my school. My school changed. They weren't prepared for that. So like everything now in a meeting, like Zoom meetings, and like the teachers weren't prepared either for making different types of activities so we can understand. So it was really hard. Like in my country, we were ready. We were ready. It was really hard and difficult. Here, I feel that, well, we came later, like not when the COVID started, but like when it was like finishing or right now, like in the middle. It's different because I took like a online class, like both, like it was in person sometimes and sometimes it was online. And I feel it was more prepared or is more likely to be designed for to have it at home. So I feel like in here in United States, I had better experience regarding online classes than in Colombia.
Yeah, I believe Sarah give us the perspective about her. Sarah, are you finished with your words? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, yes, I'm done.
Okay, all right. So I want to go with the disease problem, the pandemic that we happened here and all of the world, of course. But I guess the worst part of being in America in a pandemic situation is to speak with people behind the mask while you're not speaking the native language. Even if you are aware of the language and you can speak it at some point, there's a mask and a wall between you in a glass wall. You know what I mean? You cannot communicate with them. So by the way, I apologize that I have to join from my phone because my computer had problems and there's a technician in my house trying to fix it out. But I didn't want it to put this opportunity behind, and thank you so much for taking us here. So the only problem about pandemic for me was the communication problems between me and the people that I'm speaking to. But instead of that, we didn't have any problems except being in quarantine for a week in the house, which I had to wait for 3 weeks because I didn't get my result from Walgreens for 3 weeks. There was a problem in the laboratory. And in the United States laws, you have to stay in the home until you get your laboratory test results, and we don't want to put anyone in the risk, even if I don't show any symptoms. So yeah, there was only Walgreens problem with me, and then there was a communication problem, but after that there was no problem, to be honest. It was really nice. They really take good care of us as staying in a nice place and food, and I still have my COVID test in my walk-in closet, and I can take a look if I'm sick or not. If I'm showing any symptoms, my coordinator take me to the hospital. And yeah, I didn't have any problems in diseases. But I believe the biggest problem me and Sarah had here was cultural differences, not in America, but in the group of the students that we had. And we had everybody has a different mind and different ideas and different culture. And sometimes you just have to, push yourself because if you don't agree with them, you do not want to fight with them because you know that no one can put their culture aside while they grow up in that way. I guess that was the biggest challenge that we had all together. I think Sarah can agree with that. And only the cultural differences was a big shock for us. Nothing else was a huge problem for being an international student here.
Thank you. To kind of expand on this conversation, Sarah, to go back to what you were saying about Colombia and the challenges of virtual learning, do you think that that has improved over time? I know that you came here for the past, what is it, year or so that you've been here?
10 months.
10 months. Has Colombia improved, do you think? Do you feel like you'd have had those same struggles if you had been here at CCBC from day one of the pandemic?
Well, I feel in Colombia, like we have an old education system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna still be a lot of mistakes from like the online classes. I haven't had any online classes right now in Colombia, but I know from my school, my cousin, she's studying there, so she talks to me about it. Like, sometimes they do classes online, they say you can go, like 10 people you can go and 10 people stay at home and see it. But it's like to try to make it like they are there, but I don't feel like that works. Like if you're online, you have to do different activities. And since I have English classes online, they were different. They were based on American education and they were super different. Like I learned a lot, but I don't feel like Colombia is improving in those kind of things. Or well, not even like the normal places, like normal schools, but maybe the ones that are just online classes, of course they know how to do the system. So in Colombia, I don't think it's improving, but the ones that are just online, they are taking strategies from here and this is getting better.
I see. We have a question in the chat that I'd love for you both to answer. What were challenges you each had to deal with in your own country? Sarah, you've spoken a little bit about this, but Berkan would love your input as well.
Well, it's I think the most bad thing, it will be like maybe career for you, but the internet connection, like yes, we are not like we don't live on the like we have light and we have internet all the same as here, but the internet connection in some places can be hard, and many people that they're, for example, they don't have enough money or they are not in a good place, they're in rural places, for them it's difficult to connect. So they, in the pandemic time, they weren't able to go to school, so they didn't have education, they didn't have anything. For them it was challenging. From them, for me as a privileged person that has light, internet, water, everything, it wasn't that hard. But I feel for these people it was really hard.
Sure. Berkan, how about in Turkey?
Challenges in my country, now we have a huge refugee crisis. I mean, we did not have big problems accept economy for a long time in my country. And, in the present time, there's a refugee crisis that we have to deal with, and it's creating a real big problem right now. That's the only challenge in my country, I can say that. And for educational wise, I believe the way I learned agriculture in my country was harder than what I learned in America. I think that was more informative. But the thing about America is it is more likely to be in the open field. They give you all the opportunities to, ride a dingo and like all the machineries that you need, all the laboratory stuff. Um, I think that's kind of a part of being in a rich country, so you can learn it in the open field and you're experiencing it instead of just sitting and writing it in your brain as a visual way and an experiential way. And it is creating a huge gap between countries when you learn it that way. Because I've never ride a dingo before, I worked in the places, but that's why I ride a dingo because I worked. I didn't ride it in my hometown in my class. But all the things we do here, putting a tree with the machineries and making garden beds, I feel like I'm working. I don't feel like I'm having education. And this is really nice to have because I will not have problems in the future while I'm doing the job.
Well, that's good to hear that we're providing a strong educational experience. In terms of what you mentioned about cultural difference and some of the challenges that you faced here in terms of speaking a second language through a mask, do you have any suggestions for us as teachers, educators, as an institution of ways to improve that moving forward? What could have made those first couple of days, even these last 10 months, a little bit easier for you all in terms of that?
Well, can I talk?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So for me, it's hard to, like, I'm a shy person in Spanish, in my native language. Imagine in English, I'm way more shy. So for me, it's hard to, if I know the answer, I'm not gonna participate. Or if someone asks me something, for me, it's gonna be so hard. Or make a presentation in English. I struggle so much with that. I hate it. I don't like when I have to do that. But for me like for example, in oceanography, my teacher, she has Puerto Rican roots, so she knows Spanish, which I feel better because she understands what I'm going through, and she tries to, and when I speak, she understands what I'm saying. But with other teachers, it's hard. So I think something might help is to, I don't, well, it's kind of not too possible, but like to have someone that speaks your language or knows a little bit more about your accents. Because for example, my classmate, he's from Ghana, Manasseh, he's from part of the program, he speaks different too, and some teachers struggle so much to understand him. So that my teacher gets what I'm saying makes me feel like, okay, I can speak up and I don't have any like embarrassing moments for me.
Sure. Just I'm sorry, Berkan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I believe for Spanish language and the accent of way of speaking in Spanish, it is kind of easier comparing to African countries or Turkey, I believe, because when Sarah cannot find the word, she can say it in Spanish. I've experienced it many times, and people understand that because like many people in America already know Spanish, and they are used to hearing Spanish accent and hearing the Spanish words, which is really nice, and I'm really grateful for that. But as a Turkish person, I couldn't find anyone. The last time I speak with a Turkish man, it was like when we were in DC, it was probably 3 months from now. I cannot find anyone to speak, even if I search for them in the internet. And maybe it's due to the state that I live. If I were living in New York, things would be different. But I couldn't speak with any of the Turkish friends here because I couldn't find any of them. And when you cannot speak the language, there is no other option that you can, explain yourself. For example, if you don't know how to say broccoli, then you have to explain it like a green tree with the vegetable, and you're giving an essay to the people that you're speaking to tell them what you like to say while you're having the mask and the class at the same time.
Right.
For teachers, I believe I believe there is no way to understand each other unless we repeat ourselves. It depends on like sometimes, but that's okay because that's how we learn. And I believe we're just gonna get rid of this pandemic situation because it's been years, and things are going to be better. I'm trying to be positive on that.
Yeah, let's hope it's we're kind of rounding that corner. Just to share a quick anecdote, I've interacted with you all, I think once, like 10 months ago. I came in at the beginning of CCI and did a quick workshop. I think you were both there for that. But an online forum, even just double checking how to pronounce your names correctly. I'm sitting here chatting with you privately and trying to make sure that I'm spelling out phonetic sounds that sound correct to you all, versus if we were in an in-person setting, could just turn to you very quickly and say, how do you say your name? Great, now I'm going to say it correctly, right? There are these challenges that come with these technological barriers, even they're allowing us to safely have this interaction. And it also creates these cultural pitfalls at the same time. There are some great questions in the chat. Going back to what you were just saying, Berkan, what is the pandemic situation right now in your native countries? Do you all know where numbers stand in Turkey and Colombia?
May I go first?
Yeah.
So in my country, Turkey is really strict about pandemic. Like, I believe any region near to Europe has kind of strict rules at some point because of the way of the VC, the government, the socialist countries. And I believe that we got 3 doses for like an 85%. I actually check it before I get into the Zoom meeting. Yes, it's 85%. So we got at least 3 doses, 85% of the population. So we do not have to use masks. And due to everybody's vaccinated, and we do have spaces on the hospitals that we can put people in, so we are not afraid anymore. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen. There might be another mutation, and things might be upside down. We never can be so careful about vaccination, and being strict about this situation. I believe it is in a really nice condition, because I'm speaking with my mother and she's not wearing a mask at all. And
great.
If there was something wrong in the country, she would have to wear it.
Yeah. Sarah?
Well, in the case of Colombia, well, there's people that are not vaccinated, like a lot of people. The ones that are vaccinated, we actually both use face mask in almost everywhere. Not outside, that's the only place we don't. But inside, everywhere you are wearing a mask, and all the same things that they proved in some places that are not helping. For example, taking their temperature and things like that, they still do it because it's just like a law. But they say like it doesn't like actually say anything about it. And in the hospital, there's a lot of people with COVID too. So, there's also a new rule about the cars that if you're driving, you have to use in the same car. If there's like more than 2 people, even if they're your like family, you have to use face mask. And also to make better or like, I don't know how to say it, but like to not make the impact of the global warming too strong, they are making us to not use too many cars. So if for example we have you don't have here that, as far as I know, but we have the thing that if our title ends with even number, you cannot go out with your car from this time to this time in these days. So right now what she's doing, like the mayor of my city, I'm talking about mostly Bogota, the capital, is to, if you are driving, you can drive with 3 people or 4 people inside. so giving a ride to people, so you use less cars or less transportation. So it's being like that, like they're trying to reduce the impact of the global warming, but at the same time they're trying to get better about the COVID thing.
Gotcha. Is there any sort of vaccine mandate in either Colombia or Turkey?
Oh yes, it is in the cinemas. You cannot go inside if you're not vaccinated, or if big events. For example, Coldplay is coming on September, so you have to go vaccinated. Like if like big events, you have to go vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, you cannot go inside, even if you have the negative proof.
Sure. And how about in Turkey?
In governmental jobs, you have to get vaccinated because they believe this is kind of, you know, you are in the government, you have to show people that you are supporting that this should be. And for the citizens, it is not mandatory, but the thing is you cannot get inside the full coffees if you don't show your vaccination card. I guess that was before, now it changed. But, that was before people refused to get vaccinated. Now everybody gets vaccinated for like 3 or 2 times at least, so they do not asking for it. But I remember the times when I was in Turkey, I had to show my vaccination card to get into all of this supermarket, and like if you're not vaccinated, they're giving you a little space for like small places that you can go, that you cannot spread the disease even if you go inside, and that's all. Like you are restricted for some places that okay with the government. Unless on that, you cannot go inside anywhere unless you're showing it.
Gotcha. Kind of pivoting slightly, we have a question in the chat. Are there people that have to deal with blocking sites such as Zoom in either of your countries? If a service like Zoom is blocked, if that's the case, how are people dealing with lack of access to such a service?
Pardon me, lack of access to medical service or vaccination?
No, to something like Zoom. I don't know if this is the case in either of your countries, but in certain countries block access to certain social media sites, certain parts of the internet. Is that something that's faced at all in terms of access to something like Zoom or social media sites? Or
no, for me, I do not think that we have any access blocking for the internet and Zoom.
Neither my country, but the only lack of access is the poor, that they don't have access to computers or cell phones. That's the only thing that it's like a bad thing, but like everything works there, everything there, we don't have any limitation.
Gotcha. That's great to hear. Keep putting questions in the chat if you got them. So you all are, when did you all head back to your respective countries?
Can you repeat, like when?
Yeah, when do you go back?
On May 30th.
May 30th. Oh my gosh, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this in these final stressful days. What are some of the key takeaways that you're taking from the United States as you prepare to go back home?
Well, I need to be honest on that. I do not have a lot of multi-diversity in my country. Like I do not have Hispanic population and Black population. It's usually Middle Eastern because of the refugee crisis right now. Sure. But I will learn so much different cultures in America, and sometimes you do not like the way of people thinking, not because of the culture, but the way they think. And I'll learn to respect to other ideas, even if it is really not acceptable on me, you know. This was a great experience for me to understand people in a way. And if you cannot just, you know, find a middle way with people, you just have to, you know, put it in the bag and accept each other as a human being, as we should. And that was the biggest experience I had in America.
Can you explain me what are key takeaways? I don't know what to say.
Any big lessons that you've learned here in the United States, things that you might want to share with family members, friends when you get back home?
Well, if we're talking about the cultural things, I like, and I that's one of the things that I'm gonna miss more about here is that I feel a little bit safer. Like in Colombia, it's not a dangerous place. Like it's not a place you go and everyone like you're gonna die the first day. It's not like that, but you have to be careful with your things. Like in Colombia, they see me with a watch. I have to be really careful because they might go and steal it from me, and so for that reason, I think I feel safer here, and that's one thing that I'm gonna share more. Like, yeah, it's a whole new level of another place, and maybe I like that here you can be whatever you want. Like you're free to be whatever you want, and people is gonna try to understand where you getting through or everything. I'm gonna give an example. For example, if you're like bisexual or gay or whatever, is people are so open-minded here, but like some Americans and some Americans not, of course, but it's not like a place that you have to be afraid of being who you are. So that's something that I really like about here.
Sure. What percentage of the population in Colombia and Turkey, rough estimates, as best as you know, what percentage of the population in your home countries has internet access? Is there a big disparity or?
Well, in my case, if we talk about the whole, well, Colombia it has like big cities that people know from Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena. Those places are good places, that are big cities. If you go outside that place, it's gonna be full of poor people, and I will say honestly, like 40% people have access to internet, so it's 60% of no access.
Wow, gotcha. And how about in Turkey?
Yeah, I will say 99 because I've been to the east side. East side in Turkey is not so upgraded like in the west side. But I've been to villages, I've been to the east side, I've been to many places that you might think there is no internet because they're like living in the mountains and stuff, but they still do the internet. So I believe I will say 99% and 1% the people that who doesn't like to be in internet and who doesn't, the old population who do not want to be internet complex.
Do either of you have plans to mentor other students who might like to have a similar experience to you?
Well, it's not like we know or we have a plan regarding to that, but if a project comes up with that, we will be really happy to help, of course.
Yeah. We sort of talked a little bit about this before, but got a question in the chat. What do you think we can do here at CCBC to better assist international students? We talked a little bit about some of those cultural things, but do you have any other advice for us?
Well, in the case of the program that we are at, they ask people to mentor us. And I feel that's a really good strategy for us to feel like home, to know more about it. Because for us, we can go to classrooms, we can make friends, but it's not gonna be the same as like actually having someone that is saying like, hey, you should go to this place, let's go to this place together. I'm gonna explain you more about this culture. And those kind of things you don't do with your friends. It's just with people that they are around and want to show you. So for me, I feel that you should make maybe a project or something that international students can have some mentors, and those mentors show them like around and make them feel like better, because it's hard to be away from family in our cases. So we need like an extra help from someone that knows and teach us, like distract us and everything. Like I had experience with Miss Heather, that she's an ESOL class, and she helps. Like she has been taking us everywhere, and she explains everything. She makes us try new food. So those kind of things are like enjoyable and something that I will never forget. So I feel like that makes me feel at home.
Okay, anything?
I believe that international students needs more protection in the many places. Like, of course, we cannot protect international students everywhere around the world, but especially in the colleges, they might face with racism because we're experiencing that kind of stuff. So especially if they're facing racism through their professors and higher authorities, comparing to them, they might have the feeling of being afraid and not telling to everyone. We have to make sure that they are okay if they're expressing feelings towards whatever they feel, because it might affect their grade too. So I believe we need more programs to show the students that they shouldn't be afraid of anyone else, especially if it's about racism. I believe we still have some kind of lackings of that.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you experienced some intolerance here.
I did not experience some intolerance, but many of my friends did. And I've seen discrimination like once or twice. I cannot say like it has been all the time. Everyone was very nice to me, especially the students. But as an authority way, people might get a little bit annoying sometimes to because they sometimes people believe in the power they have, and they try to pressure you with that because you cannot speak the language and you don't know. So what is the law in this country? Unless you're speaking for yourself, to protect yourself, they're gonna make more strides than you while nobody's around.
Gotcha. Amazing. How prepared were you regarding different ethnic groups in Baltimore? Kind of going back to like getting shown around. How prepared were you for the culture of Baltimore, the various cultures of Baltimore?
In my case, we didn't know anything. Like all I did was my own research. So the first thing that shows up is that this is one of the dangerous places in the United States. It tells that Baltimore City was one of the dangerous places, which is like we have been here, and like if you compare that between Colombia, it's like it's not dangerous at all for me. In my case, it's like for me it's not like that bad. So it was shocking. You were like, you're going to a place that is dangerous, but it's United States, it might be not that bad. And it wasn't that bad. So that's the first thing I saw, but they didn't give us like any like there's this type of groups, this type of population there. They didn't.
Gotcha. Berkan, anything?
Yeah, many people told me that Baltimore is kind of a dangerous place to be. And I was like, okay. And I went there at like 2 a.m. because international students, they want some actions in their life, and it was not dangerous. Maybe I was in the middle of the city, but you cannot see people, but it doesn't mean it's a dangerous place. I guess America is a big country, and everybody thinks kind of a great way of being in the cities at night and not having a car and other stuff. But I believe it is not that bad. I believe it is safe. The cultural differences, speaking, the way that people speak in Baltimore, there's a Baltimorean way of speaking, right? That's amazing. That's something we can count as another lesson, because you are speaking English that you don't even understand. It's a different accent that people are talking here. And if you can understand the Baltimorean language, you can understand any kind of English, I believe.
That's very fair. The Baltimore dialect is very specific. What did you all learn from the pandemic? Maybe this is here, maybe this is back home, but any discoveries as a result of living under these conditions for the past 2 years?
Well,
you go ahead.
Okay. In my case, I learned my type of learning.
Mhm.
So for me, it's easier to take notes and have everything like in my notebook and watching people. But it's like more like games, things that you can do with basing like with the base of your notes, and also the I have felt that with exams that I do with my notes, I learn more than exams without notes, because it's like you try to get everything on your head, like everything you have learned. There's a plenty of information, and I don't feel like you're actually learning it. You're just like taking it in your mind a little bit for the exam, and then you forget some things. So what I feel like here, that they let us take us notebooks. I learned so much more by taking it, like do it with my notes in my exams. They're like I'm learning. I'm actually learning, and that's something that happened here with earth science and oceanography. That taking notes and doing it like that, because in oceanography we can take notes. We can take the notes out. This is specific things. I learned so much more.
I think we are in the worst situation in the world right now, especially when you're young and pandemic taking 1 year from your life. It is the worst thing in the world. Not even 1 year. We have been in the house for like 2 years from now, and things started to open in a strict way. So I was always in a depressed mode while I was in the pandemic. When I was in my country, even in here, I had to stay for 3 weeks. Can you imagine, like, you come to America and you just home for 3 weeks? Laboratory is not giving you the results. So that was something that I really hate. And I started to take a look at the problem as a philosophic way. I believe, like, as human beings, we're so fragile about everything. We think that we can control everything, and we have all the technology, we have all the medical upgradements. But in the end, there's a virus, and you cannot do anything about it. And everybody's in the house for years. Thanks God, we had the technology and opportunities to move on with our lives and protect our mental health while we're in the house, speak with our friends, speak with our mentors in the Zoom. And I depression. That's the only thing it gives to me. Like, I cannot even see the good sides of the pandemic, except being with your family and being with the ones that you love, instead of being outside, or instead of being in the job that you do all the time. But except of that, maybe I think like this because I'm really young in this life and so outgoing person. But that was really rough as a
Yeah.
mental way.
Yeah. You're certainly not alone in that. I think so many of us have felt that sense of isolation and depression. Yeah. And I can't imagine what it's like being stuck. I got COVID back at the beginning of this school year and spent 9 days by myself. I can't imagine 3 weeks. If you have to use just one word to describe this experience at CCBC, what would that be?
In my case, I would say caring, because well, we from our scholarship they give us the money to buy our textbooks and our daily food and things like that. But my family was having a really hard time. Someone was really sick, so I have to send most of my money. And they told me that in CCBC we have like an extra help if we need to. So I talked with someone in Donbak. Her name is Jolita, and she helped me so much. She gave me food from the student pantry. Also, some of us, most of us in horticulture field, we had to go to classes at the night, which can be a little dangerous for us being like international, young, and there. Like, so it's 1 hour away from our home in bus. So she also gave us like some lift cards and some like transportation cards that help us a lot. So that's why I say caring, because I really feel that CCBC helped me when I most needed.
Right. Erkan, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a really, really nice point because even if there's a specific amount that we're taking every 3 months, and even if it's not enough for you, you can be sure about that you're not gonna be hungry. You're not gonna have problems about transportation. If it's like basic human needs, well, they always take care of you. You never have to think about what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do. I mean, I've never run out of money. They were really nice to me, but even if I did, I wouldn't think like, oh, I'm alone in this country because somebody is taking care of me. It is CCBC, or if it's not CCBC, it's CCI. If it's not CCI, it's my mentor. It's going on like this. So I cannot say that I had problems with food and transportation and staying in a nice home. It was really luxurious life at some point for a student. I'm grateful for everything.
Amazing. I know that we started a little early. We've been going for about 45 minutes. I have to say, I'm so inspired by all that you two have said today. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. I'm sad that I didn't get to know you more because now I'm going to miss you. Best of luck as you head back home. And thank you again so much for being a part of this.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
I would like personally to thank both students, Damon, for taking their time and sharing their thoughts and their experience in the US. It was a pleasure to have both of you as part of our Global Education Symposium. I cannot thank you enough. And on behalf of Global Education Advisory Board and every faculty member and CCBC, we thank you for everything that you experienced and then you shared with us. You go ahead, Damon.
That's really all I have. I know that we're a little ahead of schedule, Antella.
Dr. Martinez is on the call, so I believe I would like to invite Guyona to introduce. We, as members of the Committee of Professional Programs, decided to have Guyona, a member that has been and contributed to the Global Education Professional Program Committee for such a long time, give her the honor to introduce our next guest speaker, Dr. Martinez. It's all yours, Guyona.
Yes, thank you so very much for the opportunity and to the members of the Global Education team. It is my distinct pleasure and opportunity to introduce our Provost and Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Joaquin Martinez. And so we are speaking about how the pandemic has affected equity and so many different areas of our lives. Well, Dr. Martinez joined CCBC's leadership team in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. So as you can see, I know that he has a lot to offer in sharing with us, especially with the fact that he came in. And if you are not aware, CCBC has approximately 50,000 enrolls about 50,000 students annually. And most of these students have selected degree, certificate, and workforce certification programs that prepare them to transfer to other institutions of higher learning, as well as to enter into the job market or to advance their career in a variety of industries. And so as our Chief Academic and Student Affairs Officer, he's spearheading a wide range of college-wide initiatives, including the Student Achievement and Success Institutional Redesign efforts, basically to integrate academic and student affairs more seamlessly and to streamline credit and continuing education programs throughout the academic continuum. And so I know that he has a great, I want you all to prepare your questions because I know that you will be fascinated by what he has to share with us. But just to make mention that prior to joining CCBC, Dr. Martinez spent the last decade in significant roles at Miami-Dade College in Florida. And in fact, he served as president of the Hialeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the Wolfson campuses. and district vice provost with an oversight for accreditation, as well as assessment and evaluation, policy analysis, and institutional effectiveness across all 8 campuses of this institution. And, you know, I must say that we at CCBC went through our accreditation, Middle States accreditation process. So not only in the midst of the pandemic, but to go through our accreditation process. So again, listen for what he has to say, because I know that he will provide a boatload of information. So do ask your questions. And lastly, I just want to share that educational-wise, he earned his bachelor's degree in political science and modern language from Millsbury College in Vermont. He has a master's degree in TESOL, teaching English for speakers of other languages, and administration and supervision at Southwestern University in Florida. And he also holds a doctorate in higher education leadership and research methodology at Florida Atlantic Youth University in Boca Raton, Florida. And currently he's doing so much here at CCBC, including the fact that he participates in external initiatives, such as he's a past fellow of the American Association of Community Colleges, National Community College Hispanic Council Program at California State University. And he also serves on a variety of student success initiatives. And might I say that he is currently serving as a commissioner for the American Association of Community Colleges located in Washington, D.C. So without further ado, I would like to present to you Dr. Joaquin Martinez.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Guyana, for that wonderful and very kind and generous introduction. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with all of you. I wish we had a chance to spend this time in person. It's never easy for me to engage virtually, but it is the world that we live in, right? And so I certainly will make the most of it. I also want to say a special thank you to Entella and all of the colleagues who coordinated this opportunity, including those who work to advance global education at CCBC. A soft spot in my own heart, you know, I'm often intrigued and curious about internationalization efforts at higher education, and have some significant personal and professional experience internationally. So always a wonderful space to engage with colleagues. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm particularly pleased and honored that I get to spend a little time in a forum with students. I feel sometimes so removed from the real important work and experiences of spending time with students. I miss you terribly. I jokingly or half jokingly sometimes say that I'm an administrator on loan because I started my career in the classroom where it really matters. And so you see a little bit of my bias there, but especially because I have a chance to connect in very meaningful ways with students. So I find and draw a lot of energy and satisfaction from being able to spend time with you. I didn't get a whole lot of parameters, but I did get a bit. And so I'll try to spend a little time in some of the areas where Entella, and by the way, you can call me Joaquin. So I'll spend a little bit of time in each of the areas where I was asked to share some insights. And then I'm very pleased to have you guide the direction any which way. I want this to be meaningful, especially for the students who are joining us, but for all of us. And I also do appreciate the opportunity to step in a little bit closer, more closely into exchanges with colleagues, because COVID has done a little number on my ability to do that. And that's one of the things that I think I regret the most. But we move forward. Perspectives of starting a new job. Well, I had no idea that I would be pursuing a new job when I did, really. Frankly, I thought I was nearing the final stretch of my career of almost 30 years at an institution that I had grown to love, Miami-Dade College, where I had deep roots. And so something unique happened. My longtime mentor and former president of Miami-Dade College made the decision to retire after 50 years at the institution in many different roles, including as a student. And at that point, there was a significant transition happening, not just at Miami-Dade College, but throughout the Florida college system, at the state level with legislative efforts, governors' elections. You know, these roles in public institutions are very connected to legislative priorities and agendas. And even at the board level, where in a period of 6 months, the college went through 3 different iterations of governing boards. You may have seen in the news that there have been a whole lot of conversations about institutional accreditations and perspectives, varying perspectives, to say it gently and diplomatically. And so at that point, something curious happened. My phone started ringing quite a bit unexpectedly. And I had colleagues from around the country who were encouraging me to join them in a different role. And I didn't quite know that I was interested. So I said, no, 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 no. But there was a call that came very prominently and very directly that said to me, you know, the chancellor and the board of the Virginia Community College system are very interested in meeting with you. And I said, oh, I'm good. But after so many opportunities and a time of transition, I thought, you know, is this really something that I might consider? And so, not really convinced that I would be on the road to another presidency, I threw in my application and went through that process. And at that point, it was a very public process, and the 2 finalists' names were announced nationally. I did not get hired for that role. A wonderful and talented president, Ann Kress, was offered the opportunity of a lifetime to lead that wonderful institution. And she was a sitting president and a good colleague and is doing wonderful work there. But at that point, the cat was out of the bag. And so other opportunities emerged, and I went on to other searches, including the search that helped me decide to come join CCBC. And so, as Dr. Kurtnitis often said, when I signed on that dotted line in January, I had no idea that the world was going to change in a couple of months. And so I visited, I spoke with all of our colleagues here at CCBC. I met wonderful students, spent time in visiting the community, and I fell head over heels for CCBC. And so by the time March rolled around, I had made a commitment to come to CCBC on July 1st. And so that brings me to the next topic that Entella asked me to discuss, which is a transition and perspective on a transition amid the pandemic. You know, Dr. Kurtnitis said to me, do what you need to do. I was taking care of transitioning the accreditation of Miami-Dade College. I wanted to be sure that I left my former institution in very good hands, and so I was still quite involved, and now remotely. I was also very much connected to CCBC, receiving input and insights from the president and the board and my colleagues, the senior staff, the agendas, the meetings, hearing you all at your professional development conferences, trying to stay connected and learn along the way in preparation for that July 1st arrival. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to get here. And so then I said to the president, you know, it's going to be a tough transition, but I'll be there on July 1st. And that's when I arrived. No realtors. I couldn't find housing. Folks in Baltimore and in Miami were completely removed from their daily lives. Everyone was in quarantine. I couldn't sell my home in Florida. I couldn't find a home to purchase or here in Baltimore. I ended up doing temporary housing and working, you know, using somebody else's furniture until I could sort of help become acquainted with establishing a new life here. My husband stayed behind trying to help our families transition our belongings, put everything in storage. It was very difficult, a very difficult process. And eventually, when I arrived, about 2.5 or 3 months later, things started to open up a little, and I was able to get my belongings, clothes, ship some of the things that I needed and all of that. So that from a logistics stance, it was just hard. I also didn't have any sense of reality. So, you know, everybody kept talking about the Beltway traffic. My God, I could get to all of the campuses in 10 minutes to Essex, 15 minutes to Catesville. I felt like I was the only one on the road most of the time. And, you know, my boss did not give me an option of not showing up in person. And so here I was kind of terrified about COVID, you know, worrying about my elderly mom and my in-laws. So not really understanding what it would mean to work in a COVID environment. And then all of the offices were, or most of the offices were empty. None of you were around. I couldn't come and ask for help or say, oh my God, I'm so lonely. I felt like I had every campus to myself. I didn't even know where I would live. So I put all of the campuses on a map. I put my finger right in the middle of the Beltway and said, I think I need to live right around here. And so that finger landed in a place called Timonium, and that's where, you know, we settled. When I arrived, I learned very quickly that about 75% of all of you had already registered for your courses. And so that's a lot of thousands of students who registered for their courses, except you all thought you were taking them face to face. And so did most of your professors, because when that schedule landed, that's the way it had been set up. And so how do we deconstruct an entire schedule without causing too much disruption for the students? And how do we work with the faculty to help them help us the best way possible? And fortunately, they were just phenomenal. In a very quick period of time, adopted all of the modalities, and there were 8 of them. You know, we didn't settle for 1 or 2. We went the CCBC way. We want to go big, and so they landed in 8 of them. But the most amazing thing was that throughout that process, every single conversation was about the students and how do we support them? What are the specific needs for each of the disciplines? What does it mean to be blended versus remote versus online simulcast. The faculty were for the most part gone. And so a lot of these decisions were happening during a period of time when the most important people on the table weren't on the table, around the table to help inform the work. So it was a very, very difficult time. But fast forward a couple of months, as compared to the more than 4,000 students who ended up withdrawing in the spring semester when COVID first arrived, we were down to just about 150 or 200. And so, my goodness, was that tough. And all of this without really knowing any one of you. I couldn't appeal to folks who had particular interests one way or the other. I couldn't turn to folks' preferences because I didn't know you. And so that was very difficult. The deans were helpful in that process, but the deans had also been used to working in a certain way, and that maybe was not how I was turning to them for. That's a little bit of a management and a leadership conversation, but we still needed to know each other and become comfortable with each other and understand how we would interact and support each other. There had been a lot of transitions, as the faculty and the colleagues on the call know. In the Office of Instruction, I was coming into a role at CCBC that didn't exist before. And so there was a wonderful vice president who really was a champion for many years in the role of vice president, and had left a tremendous positive influence at this institution and a huge void. And so here comes this little Cuban guy from Miami trying to figure things out, and had a big legacy to inherit. And then the role of provost didn't exist. And so I knew what a provost was and wasn't. And I was invited to step into the role of provost and vice president, but CCBC didn't know what a provost was and wasn't. And so I had to very quickly spend time defining my own parameters, getting direction and providing direction. It was a very, very difficult time because there were many, many different variables and forces at play, and none of them were small. These were very impactful realities that I had to navigate. Personal challenges, I mentioned some. I was new to the area. I'm a big mama's boy. I've always been. And for the first time in many, many years, I didn't have mama with me and close by. And I had to worry about making sure that my family was fine. I'm an only child. And so that was difficult. And then building the professional relationships that I desperately craved, but didn't have readily available. I could drive to every single campus, and I was fortunate to find 10 people on any given day. Most of them were folks who were in our public safety offices trying to help keep our students informed and connected to the best of their ability. It was a very, very challenging time, and there were many personal and professional challenges. But there was one thing that kept me very connected, which was the same thing that brought me to CCBC. So I'll spend just a few more minutes on what I think are the challenges we're facing and how we overcome them, but also some personal lessons that I think helped me through a very tough time, potentially the toughest in my career. What brought me to CCBC was that this was a rich, diverse, and passionate community of very caring people who made it very clear that they enjoyed each other and appreciated being with each other. That sense of community was alive and well. And I was coming from an institution that was in many ways similar, very diverse, in spite of its size, 165,000 students, 8 campuses, 9,000 employees. It was a family. It was a close-knit community. When folks met each other, you leaned in and you exchanged kisses. That sort of became the institutional culture. And I made, as a president, kissing my colleagues on the cheek, I made all of my HR colleagues very, very nervous. But it's something that just happened. Everyone just did it. It's a culture that expressed affection. And I enjoyed that about CCBC. I also enjoyed the fact that people spoke very passionately about helping and supporting students. And that's the reason why I teach or taught. And that's the reason why I come to a leadership role at an institution, because in many ways, our own students' stories are very much my own. I relate to it for many reasons, personally and professionally. And so it's really the driving force. And I found that here. I found CCBC to be a place that really was focused on student success. We faced challenges. We faced, I think, still do face some equity challenges that are important to recognize, and they've only become more prevalent as the impact of the pandemic has disproportionately impacted our own students. I have spent a lot of time thinking about what informs the equity outcomes of our institution, because that's a special interest for me. I think it's important that we aspire to be an equitable organization that validates the role that all of us play as contributors to this work. An institution that does that enriches the learning and the teaching experience. And so that's something that I say unapologetically, because I think it's in the best interest of the students that we serve. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about the nature of the way that we organize ourselves, the way that we build policies, the way that we make decisions for ourselves, the lens that we use to inform that. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning about that. And so a way to overcome them is to continue, in my mind, to continue to find and highlight the things that we have in common. And that is inevitably the student experience. That has got to be the driving force behind why we do everything that we do. And sometimes that comes at a detriment to all of us, including to me. You know, I was pretty afraid of COVID. I really, really was. And I didn't know what to make of it. I was the one who was washing the bags from the grocery store back in March and April. I was the one who was leaving the mail in my garage for a couple of days. Probably overreacting, certainly overreacting. But it's important to know that we're all humans, and so I was affected in a unique way around it. So I was very nervous to come back and spend time on campus in person. But I knew that was a decision that needed to be made, because there were students that needed to be served, and so an important lesson was that living your mission and advancing the mission of the community college ultimately pays off. That advocating for students, meeting their needs, is a necessary condition for the work that we do. That's why I think of my colleagues as first responders. And that's tough. That carries implications. If you and I had a need to go into an emergency room and overheard the doctors complaining in a corner, oh goodness, I can't believe this, there's so many sick people in this hospital today. You know, that I'm not so sure that's who I would want taking care of my family or me. Because that's what hospitals do, is they take care of sick people. And community colleges, what we do is help people transform their lives. And there's nothing easy about that. Now, an important lesson then is to live that mission. Another important lesson, and this one, you know, if I'm going to be honest, I had to be reminded of this one. That's why I'm very thankful for CCBC. I have been in senior leadership roles now for a good long while. And so that means that I missed that advisor's chair. I missed that conversation with the student in the hallway. I missed the office where I get to spend time with Mary, who is having A, B, and C reality, or John, who needs this, that, and the other. And that's like a strong connection to the work. I spent 117% of my time addressing major concerns that are related to folks that I work with. And, you know, it's very rare that I get into my office and I say, oh, here's a wonderful thing for you to celebrate. In fact, it's very different. So here are 10 huge issues that are about to explode, and which one has to come first? Because as long as that's happening, the folks who are doing the meaningful work in the front lines don't have to worry about that. Can be freed to worry about what really matters, which is serving students where they are, right? So that space it needs to be safeguarded. I want to be able to scoop up those barriers from wherever they are, take them off of everyone's shoulder so that the real meaningful work can happen. But, you know, after years and years and years of that, there's a risk that we can get in a senior leadership role, that we can get programmed to see the world in a different way. And not in a good way. The lens gets darker sometimes as a result of spending a significant number of years, you know, thinking about things that usually have to start with "Your Honor," you know, or you know, what are the implications A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. I mean, you spend time in this place that's just thinking about all of the potential landmines, right? And so that detracts, or it can, if you let it, detracts from the beauty of from the art and science of teaching and learning, from the more important things that happen at an institution of higher education, like what you're doing right now, right? I spent 3.5 hours hoping that I could join you earlier this morning, but I just couldn't. There was nothing I could say, I'm going to put this off. And so the best I could do was arrive 17 minutes early. Well, the lesson here is that we are fortunate to have a leader at this institution and a culture at CCBC where taking care of each other means something. The president often puts these bubbles, and one of them is being good to the people that we have. I mean, I'm paraphrasing how she says it, but that means every single one of us. And so this is hard work. If it were easy, we would do it differently, or if we knew a better way to do it, we would. But in the end, it's difficult work because we have a big mission and we make big promises. We make big promises. We say we are democracy's college. We say that just about anyone with a penny and a dream can cross the streets into one of our campuses and transform not just themselves, their whole lives, their families, their community. That's a big check to write. We say that we are open access and that we can get you where you want to go. We say that this is a ticket to the middle class, that this breaks the cycle of poverty. My God, that's a huge commitment to the people that entrust their entire futures to us because they believe us. And the good news is we're good at it, overwhelmingly good at it. Can we be different or better? Sure. We should never stop striving to be more for other people. But in that pursuit, things can get messy. And we might need to remind ourselves that we've got to find a way to balance delivering on that promise and all that entails with being good to ourselves and each other and taking care of ourselves and trusting that the answers are already among us and that at least we have each other. Boy, those are two difficult things to reconcile. It was difficult to do it as a newcomer. It was difficult to do it as a minority. I am still a Hispanic, gay, male, with an accent who has to filter every single word that comes out of my mouth in a language that isn't mine to try to deliver a message that lives more in my heart than in my mind. That's hard to do. And sometimes your audience isn't so patient or understanding. And so all of those things put together reminds me that this is still a place that cares for those values, that cares for being good to ourselves, even though we're aspiring to do very difficult things for the people that we serve. And when we forget, and sometimes we can, amidst all of the distractions, I think we still find time to pick it up along the way and remember. I have been in enough rooms where really, really difficult conversations are happening to know that at the fiber of this institution, it is still the people that guide and inform the way that we choose to interact and run this organization. And that's a big lesson. That's a big lesson. Many other institutions who aspire to deliver on the same promise that we are delivering it sometimes end up landing in a place that might make people feel less than valued, or as if they are replaceable. Not CCBC, not CCBC. And that's an important lesson, that no matter how hard it gets, at least we have each other. And, you know, the one thing we all need to learn how to do, I had an old boss and mentor that said, the difference between a job and jail is that you could always leave a job on the one hand, but on the other hand, at least we have each other. That's very powerful. So in exchange for that, to get the job done, to deliver on the promise of our mission, we also then need to be able to put up with each other. That's part of the human experience and of the professional realities at this institution. That's what brought me here, and that's why I have zero regrets. So I'll stop there, and I'll take questions if you have them, but I certainly appreciate, especially having the students here, And I'm always just an email or a phone call away. I might tell the president to wait if she needs me, but if you stop me in the middle of the hallway and you're a student, you're gonna bring me to stop flat on my tracks, even if it's just for 3 seconds to give you my card and say, contact me a little later, or I'll send someone your way. But that's really the ultimate driver for I think all of us. And that's why I'm a big champion for student success. All right, thank you. I'll stop.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez. You know, my head is just spinning with all that you have mentioned. The fact that you were still doing things at Miami-Dade, you were transitioning into interviewing for positions. You came to CCBC in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and there are a great number of things that are being done here at CCBC. You made mention of work-life balance. What are some things that you can give us advice on as to how you balance all of those things, the personal, the professional, and even the social life?
No, Guyana, I would love to be able to do that. You do not want that advice from me. I am horrible, horrible at it, horrible. I haven't even scheduled a doctor appointment in 2 years since I arrived at CCBC. I am not good at that life balance, but there are some tricks, and 2 or 3 of them that I do try to put in place. One of them is I don't make too many decisions in my personal life. When I get home, I'm done with decision making. So my family might say, well, what restaurant do you want to go? Oh, no. Just take me wherever. I'm a good follower. It's time for me to be a follower. And so I remain very attentive to what my family and my friends, the affective side of my life need from me. And I just deliver on that. I don't know how to say no in my personal life, because I have to say no too often in my professional life. So that's hard. And the other thing that I would do is that at least once, this has been tough, even for my boss. At least once a year, I do just try to disconnect and take a vacation that involves my family and my friends. But for the most part, I'm horrible at the rest. So I can't give you good advice.
It's fine. You're doing a great job. So any other questions from individuals? But in the meantime, let me ask this question. What is something that is being done here at CCBC that you're passionate about, and why are you passionate about? Or some things, it can be more than one.
That's easy. I've always said that the worst I have to be very honest. You're going to get my authentic self here. I always say that the worst conversations are the ones we don't have. And often at CCBC, I found myself thinking that we had to have real conversations that maybe were difficult to have, because we would end up either making our friends and our colleagues uncomfortable, or thinking about something that we knew was in direct opposition to the way that they felt. I think we're being much more courageous about the kinds of things that we are exploring together. And I think we should do much more of that. Whatever happened to people and to conversation as a form of communication? Sure, Marguerite Duras said it was among the most ineffective ways of human communication, talking. Fine, great. What if we stumble upon our message a million times? It doesn't matter. As long as we're still talking, we're developing a deeper understanding of the kind of institution that we want to have. And I think we need to do more of that, even when it's hard, even when we have to say, oh, my dear friend, I am so sorry, but I just don't see it that way. And here's why. I mean, we are an institution of higher education. If this isn't a place where it is safe and okay for us to debate ideas and deliberate different points of views and still grab a cup of coffee at the end and appreciate each other even more for the differences in our perspectives, then we're doomed. If higher education can't stand that, then I don't know what other forum can.
Thank you. A question was asked of you to just describe using one word, something about CCBC. So describe CCBC just using one word.
Proud.
Great, because that's CCBC Proud is one of the things that we are doing here at the college. And I'm certain that there are a lot of proud moments here at CCBC. So with that said, may I ask this question? You made mention that we should not be distracted from the art and the science of the beauty of learning. Is learning an art or a science, or is it both?
I think it's both. I think we should strive to make it both.
And how do you do that? What are some ways, some practical ways that you can share with us as to how we as individual faculty, staff, and students are able to do that?
Activate the heart and the mind. You know, there's a very strong connection. Dewey referenced it. Many scholars have referenced it. There's a very strong connection between love and learning and love and teaching. Teaching is a very selfless act. How many of us have spent countless hours devouring books until we could barely stand it? I've been a student my whole life. And all that it takes is one student to stand in front of me and you know, the look, you know, the eyes, right? And then in that split second, I make a decision to give it all away for nothing. If that's not a connection between love and learning, then we're not being attentive to what it takes to teach and learn. So teach with your heart and with your mind.
Yes, I agree with that. So you made mention of cultural differences that you yourself have had to face. I too have faced those differences in that I came from the country, Jamaica, and the British curriculum is far different from the American curriculum. And it took so many different ways to transition from one form of curriculum to the next. And you made mention about so many transitions that you have had to make. Our student panelists, they also talked about cultural differences and transitions. What are some advice that you can give to faculty, staff, and even our students as to how to bridge that gap that might exist with as it relates to cultural differences and transitioning smoothly into CCBC? And it doesn't have to be necessarily individuals from different parts of the world, but we know that there are cultural differences geographically as well. It can be cultural differences in Dundalk versus Catonsville, versus CCBC Catonsville, CCBC Essex, and all the other centers. What advice can you give as to how to maneuver those processes as it relates to cultural differences?
Yeah, I would say with courage and vulnerability, be comfortable in vulnerability. That's hard. That's a hard ask because there's a lot to lose, you know. But I speak 5 languages. I've lived, worked, or traveled through more than 80 countries. I have found the level of comfort, and I've learned from experience that people have more in common than they do differences. And so if you are willing and courageous, and that's a difficult combination, to make yourself vulnerable to others, I think that you will find that those differences make it easier to find common ground and to develop deeper and richer understanding, even when those differences exist. We live in a society where I think we are losing the ability to see the world from a different lens and still be human together. And so I think we have got to practice that more.
Thank you so much. You made mention about the fact that you were removed from the important work of spending time with students and starting a career, because you started your career in the classroom. So what are some ways do you think that even despite COVID, that you will be able to make that transition to spend more time with students or to connect more with students?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know, sometimes I run the risk of appearing to be weird to students because I find a way to just stick myself into their context, and their first reaction sometimes is, who are you? But it's almost like by the time I say, hi, how are you? The conversation's already started and I've already interrupted their space. But sometimes it happens in spite of me. I see 2 or 3 students sitting in a bench and I walk by them and I can't help myself and say, hey, how are you doing? And then they say, fine. And I say, what's your name? I'm Joaquin. And I lean in a little bit. I just incorporate myself into their informal spaces. And most times they let me get away with it. And then in the last 2 weeks alone, I've really enjoyed going, for example, to the pinning ceremonies. I've gone to about, I don't know, 7 or 8 in the last couple of weeks events where we're celebrating students and their families for their achievements. And it gets me every time. It gets me every time. I'm transported to that moment in my own graduation at Middlebury, where my Cuban mother, who had never had the money or the means to jump on a plane back when planes, you know, were difficult and expensive, and the feeling that I had seeing my mom, the one who had fought for the American dream and was starting to find it, with the green mountains of Vermont in their backyard and in the background, and that special feeling of mother and son and family and celebrating a hard-fought commitment for something good. And I find that in the students. I find that connection with their families, and it's a champion. It's a moment of true courage and valor and success that re-energizes me. So that's, I think, why I do it, because I think I connect with it in a very emotional and instinctive way.
Thank you. So the session speaks about equity and inclusion. Let's hear from you. What are your thoughts about not only equity and inclusion for students, but also faculty, staff, and even members of our CCBC community, because we are a community college, and we have to make sure that our communities are intricately involved in our initiatives. So as it relates to equity and inclusion, what are some thoughts that you have to move CCBC to the next level?
Yeah, I'll start with inclusion, which is usually a place that comes last in that acronym, but I think it should come first. Inclusion, I know firsthand that not all of my colleagues experience this institution the same way, regardless of what they bring to it. We all bring a series of characteristics and assets and life experiences to the table to contribute and advance this mission together. We all subscribe to doing that from day one, but we don't all experience it the same way. And I think we've got to be attentive to finding ways to be more inclusive first, because it's very difficult for me to walk away from wanting to understand more if I have an opportunity to hear how you are feeling and how you are experiencing our work together. And if you're not included in the same space where I am, then that might not happen. So I want to create more ways for us to be inclusive. That often means talking together, but it also means interacting together, having differences together. You know, one of the things I struggled the most was people turning to me in this role because it became very clear early on that they wanted me to tell them what to do. CCBC had an orientation that to me felt very hierarchical and very top down. And so I spent a lot of time waiting for things to happen and realized that a lot of people were waiting for me to tell them what needed to happen. And in large part, there's this notion that we should stop talking and just tell me what you want. Well, I don't think so. I think it's the other way around. We need to talk more so that you get to tell us what we need. And so shifting that framework, starting with inclusion, then informs the conversation in a more meaningful way about where are the inequities if they exist. I don't think any one of us would want to propagate them if we understand them to be negatively impactful to our students or to ourselves. But we've got to start by including all of the voices at the table. And if we don't like the conversation, then we need to bring new voices.
Thank you so very much. I just want you to know that individuals in the chat have mentioned that they enjoy your personal storytelling because it just allows us to get to know you better. The pandemic has kind of separated us, and you came in during a time that, you know, we don't know much about you unless we read up on it or look on it on paper. So thank you for those stories that you've shared. A question in the chat, and please, I think we have some more time. So please do ask questions. What initiatives do we, as it relates to the students who spoke earlier, the international students, we had 2 of them that spoke on the panel, and they discussed their stay here at CCBC. So the question is, what initiatives do we have here at CCBC to continue to extend these international collaborations? I know we have a lot of things going on with the Global Education Action Board, but you personally, what are some, what's your vision as it relates to seeing these international collaborations, even as we think about online learning, expanding online learning? So that's the question for you.
Yeah, you know, my personal inclination is to validate the internationalization efforts and global education. Now, I went to the University of Florence. I lived and worked in France. I speak 5 languages. I went to Middlebury College. I was born outside of the United States. I'm perfectly bicultural. That to me is a very comfortable space. And so I want to be supportive of efforts that will internationalize the campus. Now, I also think that the academic leadership teams and the school deans primarily have the ability to contextualize that in a richer way than I would. And so I just have to encourage them to step into that space and find relevance in nurturing those efforts. Otherwise, we might end up with what sometimes I refer to as silos of excellence. You know, Melissa Chambers is right now in the Smoky Mountains with a group of students. Well, she thought to send us a picture, and I said, oh my God, and I called and wrote an email, how are you doing? Tell us all about it. But I think my vision is that we build a hub, a platform where this effort, international efforts, global efforts to inform the curriculum actually can get deployed at scale. And I can't do that with these 2 hands. I could throw some funding at 3 or 4 good ones, you know, 3 or 4 that might arbitrarily seem good to me. But that's not going to get us to a transformation of the educational enterprise that values the competencies that global education can bring. And for that, the faculty need to be inspired and engaged to inform that work. And sure, let me take some ownership here. I could potentially circumvent the academic leadership, go straight to the faculty and try to nurture that and nourish it and support it and maybe even inform it. And I would do that if push came to shove. But if I'm doing that, I'm not doing other things that I should be doing. And so I think there's room for the academic leadership to step into that space with the faculty and find ways that are relevant to anchor that work at scale. That would make me happier. And that's more in line with the vision for a college-wide framework that colors every experience of the college, or as many as possible.
Yes, so thank you very much. So maybe 1 or 2 questions. Anybody else would like to ask a question? All right, so one question is, what is a new initiative that you envision that we have not yet done here at CCBC that you believe would be something that will take CCBC even to higher heights? If you're able to think about such an initiative, could you tell us what it is and what it would look like?
Yeah, I think we would probably find a common protocol, for lack of a better term, on how we are going to guide and advise our students. I think that right now we cannot really very definitively answer how do we advise our students to navigate through this journey that we invite them to. I think a lot of us do that very well. I'm not sure that all of us know what the best way to do that in order to meet our needs is, and I think we should answer for that. How do we want to help our students navigate this journey? Where do we want to activate ourselves to make sure that we are delivering what we think they need? We're the experts. They think we know the answer, and we do. We just have to find a way to voice it. I often mention an example when Bank of America, remember when we used to write checks, right? So Bank of America had an ad that said something along the lines of, at Bank of America, we process whatever the number was, 10 million checks a day. Our job, they used to say, our job is not to process 10 million checks correctly. Our job is to process one check correctly 10 million times. And our job is to do the best that we can to guide our students, one student at a time, 50,000 times. How would we do it if we were guiding your son or your nephew or your sister? How would we want them to experience that? And then we should be able to deliver it for all of our students.
Thank you. So another question is, my head is spinning, so sorry.
So is mine.
So often we make decisions and we implement initiatives without hearing the students' voices, especially. What are some plans that you have in place? Are you thinking about that, how to incorporate the voices of our students? Because sometimes they may mention that, oh, I never knew that was happening,
yeah,
or things have suddenly changed. how do you incorporate? I know it's they're on different pathways. They have different lives that they live, and you know, it's hard to catch up with the community college students. But what are some things that you may be thinking about in order to incorporate or integrate the voices of our students in the decision-making processes?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have plans and we've already taken action in some instances. So very recently, we found compensation to bring student voices in a very formal way to our student achievement and success effort. So we remunerated students for participation in focus groups, and not just the students that were readily available to us, or the ones who fit a more traditional profile, but you know, we serve students from across the community and from all walks of life and different age groups and so on. So we've started to do that. We have students who are sitting in some of our work groups and now are having conversations about including student membership in the steering committee of the Student Achievement and Success work. We have students sitting in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and we want to incorporate some of those students into the work groups of that council. So beyond saying several months ago that, wow, we really should include student voices, we actually have already started including student voices. We're talking about reaching out to students for from our marketing department to understand, as Tinto would say, knowing why students stay doesn't tell us a thing about why they leave. And so figuring out what happened to students who are no longer here by reaching out to them, inviting them to the conversation, help us understand why this didn't work out the way you wanted it to when you first came here. So it's an important effort, and we should do much more of it.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, any words that you would like to express to all that you may have not had the opportunity to share?
Sure, just thank you, appreciative of the opportunity, and to advance student success at scale, especially at an institution like ours, is really, really difficult. There are just a handful of institutions, community colleges in the country that have managed to do this at scale in a very remarkable way. So I'll just remind our students and our colleagues, this is very difficult work. In the best of circumstances is difficult. And so whatever we end up getting right today around student achievement and success isn't going to really manifest itself at least until 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, when the University of Georgia managed to get underrepresented students to actually perform as well as their counterparts at the same institution, and actually outperform in some instances. It took 6 years before the first data started to leave the baseline. And so for 5 years it was flat. And then you know what happened? Years 6, 7, 8, and 9, it went like this, straight up. And they are graduating and serving a community very similar to the ones that we serve. They have actually managed to increase their graduation rates by more than 3 times what they were doing just 3, 4, 5 years ago. A lot of what we are trying to do isn't new. It's well supported in research. It's well supported in best practices. There are institutions who have done that. You know what the difference is? Those institutions made a decision, in spite of how hard it was, that they really were going to put their students first. And they stopped at nothing, even if it meant changing some of their long and successful ways. It's not the same. For those of us who have been in this field for years, this is not higher education of 30, 20, 15, even 5 years ago. It's a whole new ball game.
So thank you again, Dr. Martinez, for your time. And even though you are 17 minutes, we appreciate what you have done here in these few minutes that you have afforded us. Thank you again, and I now turn it back over to Entella.
I would like to personally thank you, all the speakers, and then everyone who participated and then attended the Global Education Symposium this year. It has been a pleasure with all the members of subcommittee working with all of you throughout the academic year 2021-2022. We actually did it. Pandemic forced us to do so many things, but at the same time made us be creative, encouraged us to do more and strive for the best. And then I'm so proud of every one of you. And then for all my colleagues attending today, thank you so much for all your support and being part of it. I wish you all the best and have a great summer.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Entella.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a great summer, everyone.
You as well.
Thank you, you too.
Great job, guys.
Coco want to be included in our symposium
I'm
too.
still getting an image of Coco recorded once I saw.
Oh, sorry. She was sitting waiting. Now she just, I guess, said, I want to be included. So